to the Kent Lapp Podcast.
Chris Thomas,
Oh,
man, what
Kent
is
Lapp.
up?
What's going on,
You know what
buddy?
I have to do with you is I have to get you on the podcast to catch up.
All you got to do is say, hey, let's grab coffee. Like, we don't have to go through all this.
Well, we do kind of.
We could turn these off right now, go out there and...
Yeah, but this
do
is
whatever.
like leveraging our time, though. You know what I mean?
Yeah, content.
So it has the
It's an age of content.
dual benefit.
I get it. I understand.
Thank you for coming by.
Man, thanks for having me. I'm excited about it.
How have you been?
Oh, man. Ooh, that's a really complicated answer, Ken.
Yes. I know. I understand.
I think I'm okay.
Okay.
I think I'm okay. I'm okay for sure.
Mhm.
You know, I don't know, dude. It's just the weirdest time to be alive ever. And I mean, I don't know. There are days that I'm like, I stay super worried and anxious because I watch the daggum news too much. And then there are days that I go, okay, I'm never watching the news again. I'm gonna pull that completely out of my diet.
Mm-hmm.
And those days are better.
Yep.
It's just, I'm just trying to figure it all out. I mean, business, life, you know, it's just all crazy right now.
It is crazy right now.
Yeah.
When you say you're okay
Yeah.
and you don't say, dude, I'm the best I've ever been in my entire life.
Right.
Is part of that because you have a company that is at least partially in the event space?
Yeah.
And we're
absolutely.
in the middle of
Yeah. Like
freaking
it's
COVID-19.
it's a scary time. Like
It has to be.
Yeah. We're completely pivoting that brand and we don't know if it's going to work or not. We think it's going to work. We feel good about it,
Mhm.
but we haven't officially made that move, so we don't know if it's going to work yet.
Mhm.
And that's a scary feeling, obviously.
Oh, my goodness. Yeah.
I mean, it's terrifying.
Yep.
But then there are, you know, like my wife reminds me daily, well, what are the real things in life?
Yeah.
Like, what are the real important things in life? I have a relationship with Jesus. He gives me grace and mercy
Yep.
every single day that I don't deserve. I'm married to the most fantastic woman on the planet. And I know you would say that same thing about your wife. We all should.
Yep.
But I believe that about my wife, and we all should believe that about our wives.
Your wife is great.
Every day I go, how?
Yeah.
Why? How? Why did you choose to marry me? I don't understand. I have 4 kids who I adore, who are healthy, who call me daddy, who love to play golf with me or shoot shotguns with me or whatever.
Yep.
They love to spend time with their dad. I have good friends who are closer than brothers. What am I? Can we cuss on this podcast?
I don't mind. I'm not going to stop you.
But what am I groaning about?
Yeah.
What am I? What on
What
earth?
cuss word did you want to put in there?
I was gonna say bitching.
Oh, sure. That's
but-
fine. Yeah.
But I'm not a public cursor.
Right.
You know, if you and me and a couple other dudes or whatever, we're hanging out privately. I have this thing. Some of my friends make fun of me. I say, if you know my heart, then I'm open to the occasional manly cursing. But I'm not a public
sometimes
cursor.
it contributes to the conversation, but I think you need to be appropriate with it. But
Yeah.
this is a conversation,
Yeah.
so I think there's some things that are appropriate. Man on man, in small groups, on a podcast that probably wouldn't be appropriate, in your devotional at church.
I have nothing real in my life to be complaining about.
Yeah.
I have a good marriage. I'm a pretty healthy guy. Kids, friends, and there are even other businesses that I'm not having to move my family underneath an overpass.
Right.
That's not reality.
Yep.
But some days I feel like that's going to be my reality.
Mm-hmm.
And then I have to just remind myself of the truth. And I have to get, and other people, chime in and remind me of the truth.
Yep.
I don't have the COVIDs, by the way. Do you have the COVIDs?
I haven't gotten the COVIDs yet that I know
haven't
of.
either. I think I had it in February, but I feel like everybody thinks they had it in February now.
I've heard that quite numerous.
It's a new thing.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure I had this in February. But I really do think I had it
It's
in
very
February.
possible.
Yeah.
It's very, very possible.
Yeah, something hammered me for 3 days, early February, and I was like, I mean, but it felt like the flu. I mean, But
did it?
Yeah, I've only had the flu.
That would be interesting to know.
I've only had the flu really maybe 3 times in my life, but
wow,
this knocked me out for 3 days. The worst I've ever felt. Now, I didn't have the coughing and the respiratory thing.
Okay.
So that component wasn't what I dealt with. But everything else, and then just immediately after that, it was like, boop.
Ooh, that's interesting. So, you might actually have. And by the way, I mean, the other people that I have heard that thought maybe they had the COVID this winter too, they were people that I know and trust. They would never just say it. You know what I mean? Like it was a particular illness that they haven't had before. It was kind of weird. Something was a little different about it. Maybe it was a little harder or whatever.
It was.
But it
was harder for sure.
Okay. So it affects everyone differently. One of the things that I heard recently from our doctor is that she is seeing more patients coming in. This is like midsummer and mid to late summer.
Great movie, by the way. I'm just kidding.
Movie.
Have you not?
Mid to late summer?
He got the reference. Now, I would never watch that movie.
Mid to late summer?
No, it's called Midsummer, right?
Midsummer. Oh, okay.
And dude, trust me.
Okay, we'll check it out.
No, I promise you. I have not seen it. I won't watch it. But I was curious enough to read a couple of articles about it, and it was like, oh, man, no. It's...
Okay.
Oh, no.
All right.
You don't want to do that.
Yeah, now that you mentioned it.
No, don't go looking for that.
Anyhow,
kid.
she was seeing a lot more patients that were coming in with very mild symptoms or asymptomatic symptoms. So her caseload was going up, but the severity of the cases of the people that she was seeing was going way, way down.
Yeah.
It just has different effects on different people. So it very likely could have been, but I'm intrigued by you saying you only had the flu 3 times in your life. I mean, I probably have it. I don't know. I guess now that you say that, I probably haven't had it more than a half a dozen times.
Yeah.
But the flu is awful. I'll be honest with you.
I might be off a couple, 3 to 5 times in my life.
The flu is awful.
Oh, dude, it's miserable.
It's so miserable.
It's the worst.
It is the worst.
You're achy. For me, anyway, achy, sore everywhere. Shoulders, back,
dude,
abs,
when
everything.
I get sick, I feel like I'm dying.
Yeah, I feel like literally I've been run over by a truck and every part of my body aches.
Same.
Chills. Mm-hmm. Can't get hot enough. And then you get in, then you get in there and then you're like, I'm burning up and now I got to shed it now. It's
Can you imagine
worst.
being a wife to a husband that's as awful as we are when we get sick?
And
that must
I'm
be
the worst. I'm genuinely the worst. My threshold for pain and discomfort. This is something I've learned about myself in the last 2 years, maybe. One of my idols is like comfort.
Okay.
I want to be comfortable.
I can resonate with that.
I don't want any pain or discomfort in my life.
Yep.
And it totally is connected as well to like physical pain and discomfort.
Yes.
I can't do it.
Yep.
I can't watch people get hurt. I can't watch people be sick. If somebody throws up, I'm going to absolutely throw up. I'm like a chain reaction throw upper. I can't deal with pain. So dude, if I get sick like that, she's a saint.
Yeah, she's running the household at that point. And taking care of you like a little baby. Yep. Yeah, I'm the same way. Now, you mentioned movies. Have you seen the movie on Netflix that caused a little bit of a stir this summer called Cuties?
Oh, no.
Andrew, what's it called?
Cuties.
Cuties? Okay.
Cuties?
Okay.
Cuties.
Did you know?
Cuties. Yeah. I feel bad that I even knew that.
Oh man, I literally can't laugh very much today because I have an intercostal muscle rip on my right side. It feels like I have a broken rib, but it's just a muscle strain.
Intercostal.
Your intercostal muscles keep your ribs together, and I heard it a week and a half ago. And
what were you doing?
It was just something at CrossFit, but I don't even know what happened. But it's tender. Anyhow, Cuties. So that was a little bit of a stir this summer.
Yeah.
Do you know anything about it?
I know a little bit about it. Yeah.
Okay. Let me ask you this. Mm-hmm. What did you think of the stir? What do you think about the whole cancel Netflix thing because of that?
Okay, I have this is a little bit of a it's a complex opinion. I was really so immediately when it came out and there was this huge, stir. There's a what's it called? It's kind of like the new Drudge Report.
The new Drudge.
It's very simple. Yeah, it's just links.
Reddit?
No. Citizen something. Citizen
Andrew
News.
will see what he can
I don't
find
know.
On the internet.
Citizen News Report, something like that.
Okay.
And so that was where I first read about it. And the article that I read was like, oh, this is child pornography. It had, a cover, maybe the poster, the event poster. It had like a 30-second YouTube clip that it was like, this is the worst movie of all time. I watched the 30-second YouTube clip, and I was like, this is disgusting. Mm-hmm. I like watching. I was going, why on earth? I mean, these are, I think legitimately 10, 11, 12-year-old girls, I don't think they're older actresses who are
younger,
playing down in age. I think they're genuinely kids.
8 to 12?
8 to 12.
Okay, 8 to 12. And so I was
Some
like,
cases,
what?
6.
And I was like, this is, it felt really dirty to watch even that 30-second news clip about it, showing some of the bits that were in the movie. And I was like, this is, how on earth could anybody be okay with this? Then I read another article about it that was kind of in defense of the movie. And it made some decent points in the fact that apparently the lady who either directed it or created it, I don't remember her name, but that, she's trying to say that the over-sexualization of young girls in America, and I don't even know, is it set in America?
Yes.
No.
It is? Okay.
No.
Oh, it's not?
No.
No. But
I have some thoughts on it too. I want to get to.
Okay, so maybe not in America, but the over-sexualization of young girls is a wrong thing.
Yeah.
And so she's trying to portray that these young girls via social media or whatever are impacted by what they see from the influencers or from what men tell them they should be, and they behave a certain way, and that the ultimate point of the story is that behavior is not okay, and that the over-sexualization of young girls is not okay. And so I was like, all right, to me, that's a fair point.
Mm-hmm.
And I started thinking about it. If Cuties had been a novel, if this had been written words on a page in a book, would anybody have a problem with it? And I don't think so. Mm-hmm. I mean, I've read, I love reading nonfiction. I'm sorry, I love reading fiction. I love reading both, but I love reading great novels, and I love reading great stories. And some of those stories are dark. Some of those stories have murder. Some of those stories have rape. Some of those stories have, robbery, crime. Some of those stories have things that aren't good as a part of the story. But to me, it feels different seeing it on film.
Sure.
It feels different. Actual kids, moving pictures, depicting things that kids should not be doing.
Sure.
And so that's where I ultimately land on it. Now, do I want to cancel Netflix? Genuinely, I don't. Yeah. I don't, and I've talked with a good buddy of mine about this a little bit. I think that, and he's actually influenced me quite a bit on this. We as Christians, I think a lot of times just react to things like this that are part of culture, and we say, we got to cancel this. We got to boycott. Mm-hmm. There's a boycott culture that is part of, maybe the conservative side of Christianity. And I don't love that.
Right.
I don't love that, that if you make a joke, or if a comedian, Joe Rogan, if you take Joe Rogan, the people at Spotify who are up in arms about Joe's comedy and him making jokes, that they want to cancel him. They essentially want to cancel him. I don't think that's right.
Right.
Now, it's a little bit different. Like I get in this conversation with myself where I go, well, wait a minute. If somebody's out there making legitimate child pornography, do I think they should be canceled? Yeah, I think they should. I think they should be canceled, thrown in jail, not be able to do business. To me, that's a crime. And it's different. Do I think somebody making adult pornography should be thrown in jail? No, I don't. I don't think it's good and healthy. But I think if it's a consensual thing,
sure,
that shouldn't be a crime, you know? And so, but when it's kids, I think it's different. Mm-hmm. And there's something that feels, it feels wrong.
Yep.
It feels evil a little bit to me. And so, but I'm not up for canceling Netflix. Mm-hmm. I'm all up for people using pressure, public persuasion to try to move a brand in a specific way or maybe educate, but I don't think you just go throw the baby out with the bathwater and just cancel Netflix. And especially for me, like we live in the country.
Yep.
We cut our cord 3 years ago. We don't have satellite or cable. I don't have an internet connection in my home right now.
Really?
I cannot get internet. This is 2020. I can't get internet access at my home.
So do you have Netflix?
We do, but we can only stream it from a hotspot on our phone.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Wow.
Or I mean that's the only way we can do it right now. So these days we're not doing it.
I see.
And we had a little hotspot thing.
Yep.
But it was a weird setup through like a weird online company that a friend of ours had connected us with, and then it just stopped being serviced.
Mm-hmm.
And we can't get them to return a phone call or an email or anything. They just keep billing us, and we have zero for 3 months. We haven't had any service at all.
Yeah. Oh wow.
None.
Wow. So I think with Cuties, first of all,
have you seen it?
I have. I have not watched the whole thing because it was very boring. But and I shouldn't speak in sound bites because someone could pull that sound bite out and that's not going to play well on the internet. So if that's the only 10-second clip that they hear. Here's what I think about Cuties is, first of all, if someone saw either just the poster that Netflix had for it, or the trailer, or the actual movie, or pictures, or just from what they heard about it, and they wanted to cancel Netflix, look, they can do whatever they want. I'm not going to speak poorly about that. If someone wants to pull out of Netflix or Amazon or not watch any more TV based on, feeling like they're supporting something, or they want to take away that maybe that ability to see things that they don't want to see or they don't want their kids seeing, I'm totally fine with that. And then beyond that, so I'm totally cool with that. And then beyond that, I think that there was a lot of misunderstandings around Cuties, and I think that it was interesting on the timing of things because we were so kind of hot and triggered and just ready in general like this summer for something like this to come along and just kind of have it like...
It's a little bit like a tinderbox.
It was a tinderbox, yeah. And so... there's a couple things that were misunderstood. First of all, it's not a TV show. It's a movie. So I heard that
I never heard anybody tell me it was a TV show.
I did.
Really?
That's all I heard. I heard that it was a TV show shot in America, and the underlying purpose of this TV show was to bring in young girls that could be utilized and abused and who knows what.
Where did you hear this?
So, I didn't hear from multiple parties I heard that.
That's crazy.
So I heard there was a TV show and preying on young girls. That's what I heard.
Yeah.
And so finally honestly, I didn't pay it that much attention because I wasn't that interested. But so there's Cuties on Netflix one night, and my wife's there, and so we just click play. It's what's it rated, Andrew? PG-13?
Not sure.
So I think let's check out what the rating is on. I'm assuming it's PG-13, and so. It is a movie, not a TV show, and it is PG-13. So if someone doesn't want to watch PG-13, that's fine. I didn't watch the movie. I just fast-forwarded to see what the storyline was, and the storyline seems to be a young girl who grows up in like a Muslim-type culture, and so she sort of has this free spirit and wants to dance, but of course her grandma and her mom, particularly, I think the grandma don't want her to do that. And then, yes, again, there is dance scenes towards the end of this movie, or a dance scene at least, that is 8 to 12-year-old girls apparently on a stage like at a fair.
That's part of the clip that I saw.
Dancing in, tight clothes, short shorts, booty shorts, that type of thing. Like maybe even two pieces. I can't even quite remember. But dancing like promiscuously, like suggestively. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Am I a fan of 8 to 12-year-old girls dancing like that? 100%, of course not. But I can tell you that you can find a lot worse than that on Netflix. And so here's the big thing that I think was maybe misunderstood in America for the large part when this happened. This was not an American film. This was a film, I think it was Paris. Did you find that, Andrew?
Is it set in Paris?
I'm sorry, not Paris. This was a French film, I believe. And we should probably fact check this, but I believe it was a French film. And when it came out, it was not, they didn't use the marketing that they use in America. It was not like overly sexualized when they came out with the marketing material and the messaging. The movie wasn't about young girls dancing their booty off. You know what I mean? The movie was about the storyline and freedom of expression of thought and like finding yourself. And I'm not even saying that any or all of that's right. I'm just saying this is what happened. When it came to America, I do think Netflix did make a mistake because of the cover they had on the movie. It was like a very kind of promiscuous, like it had like the cover was like probably the worst scene in the entire movie. Of these young girls like dancing, things like that. So Netflix made a mistake with that. And they also made a mistake with their messaging. When they brought the movie to America, the messaging of the movie did turn more sexual and so forth. And that was a mistake. And I think they called it back later and changed it and so forth.
They did.
So, yeah. Okay. So, again, I don't mind if people cancel Netflix. They can do whatever they want. I have no problem with that. I didn't cancel Netflix, didn't pay that much attention to it. And then when I did finally pull up the film and just like, here's the thing with that film. It looks like a boring film, to be honest with you. Like it does. I wouldn't sit there and watch that film. It looks extremely boring.
What type of film do you normally go for?
Not that. But I will say I was surprised.
Why not that?
I'll get to that. I was surprised at all the upheaval that was burning through people's social medias and people canceling Netflix and all of this. I talked to someone just last week who canceled Netflix and he thought it was a TV show.
Yeah.
He can do whatever he wants. I'm just saying that he didn't have the right. He didn't have the right information.
I'm genuinely curious about this. What does it matter if it's a TV show or a movie?
I think if it's a TV show that's about 8 to 12-year-old girls competing in booty shorts and what do you call it? Two-piece, I don't know. My oldest daughter's 6 years old. I don't know. Yeah, a piece of the top and a piece of the bottom. Is that what you call it?
Mine's 15, and she's like the most modest kid I've ever met in my life.
If it's a TV show in America that is, what do you call it, campaigning or candidating or competing, like pulling in, like America's Got Talent, like a reality TV show. That's different. You know what I mean?
So
That's
he
very
thought it
different.
was a reality TV show?
I don't remember specifically the reality part, but definitely thought it was a TV show. My point is, the movie looks pretty boring. I'm not even suggesting that anyone watch it. I just think there was a lot of misinformation, like a lot of other things that happened this summer, and things just went viral on social media. Everyone's tensions were a little bit high, and
like a lot of other things.
What
other things?
That got fed into the blender.
First of all,
you asked what TV shows or movies I would like.
Yeah.
Let me give you an example. Have you heard of Yellowstone?
Are you kidding me?
Have you watched it?
Dude, yeah.
You've seen Yellowstone?
Oh, yes.
Dude, it is.
I'm obsessed.
It is.
Team Rip, right? You're Team Rip.
I would go Team Rip. I will say this. So no spoilers here. We're only halfway through season 2. Actually, we just started season 2.
What?
Yeah. You have to buy the seasons on Amazon.
Bro.
But I will say.
So you don't know anything about season 3?
Nothing, and I don't want to know anything about season 3.
Yeah, I would never do that to you.
This is top 5 TV show of all time, bro.
I struggle with it. I struggle with the content that I'm consuming these days because I don't think that it's good for my brain. I don't think it's good for my mood. I'll tell you what. So have you ever seen Justified?
Is that where you have the cowboy?
Yep. He's a U.S. Marshal in Kentucky.
I have seen an episode or two of it and then just didn't quite get into it. It looked a little bit too crime for me. We don't really get into the crime stuff because crime
you
stuff.
like the Yellowstone.
No, that's different. Okay, so when you think about Law and Order, for example, every episode is the same. The only thing that's different is who dies and who, you know what I mean? Like it's all basically it follows the same storyline, and then 45 minutes later it stops and you get to watch the whole storyline play out again in the next episode, that type of thing, like Miami Vice and those types of things. We don't really get into that. Justified, I can't really speak to because we didn't watch enough of it, but Yellowstone is not a crime. That's not like crime TV like Law and Order. It's very different.
But,
I mean, there's a
Justified
narrative there.
is not like Law and Order.
Okay.
Not at all.
Yep.
Oh my goodness. Dude, no, I would put Justified in the same category.
Okay.
Sopranos, Yellowstone, Justified.
Okay.
Sons of Anarchy. Did you ever watch that?
Sons of Anarchy, or did I watch
Justified?
I think I did watch some Sons of Anarchy.
Justified is
the motorcycle
not,
one.
Yeah. Justified is not Law and Order. 1,000% not. It's character development. It's it's some of the best TV. Now there were a couple seasons there that I was like, I'm not feeling these seasons. But Raylan Givens to me is one of the greatest TV characters of all time. If you go watch Justified, Raylan Givens, who's the main character, the U.S. Marshal, who gets what do you call it? I get moved.
Transgender?
No, not that. He's not that. Not yet. Maybe that's when they reboot Justified. He'll come back. He'll come back. It's like it'll be Raylana Givens or something like that. But he kills a guy.
Transported.
No, it's not transported.
Is it, Andrew? I just watched this. Wait a minute. On Saturday Night Live, they just did a thing where Joe Biden went in to get transposed as the Fly.
But it's not that. He kills a guy in Miami, and then they move him to Kentucky. They say, okay, you don't get to work in this office anymore. Okay. We're going to move you. But what's that word?
In that context.
It would always be in cartoons. It's like, if you mess up, we're going to move you to Siberia. You get to
deported.
No, it's not deported.
Well, that's pretty dang close, though. I got to give him that.
But it's like
it's like witness
transferred.
Protection.
Transferred.
There you go.
There we go. I knew it was a trans word.
Congratulations.
Yeah, I appreciate that. So he gets transferred from the Miami office back to his hometown of Kentucky.
Okay.
And so now he's working, he's investigating things that have to do with all of the people that he grew up with, and his friends from high school, and the girl he used to date, and his ex-wife, and all of these things. And it's fantastic.
Okay.
But when I started, I made a decision, 3-4 years ago, that I was not going to watch dark, heavy TV anymore. It was not good for my mood. And at the time, I was watching Sons of Anarchy. I was watching Walking Dead. And I was like, I'm done with it. And so I made a complete shift where genuinely, the only things that I've consumed media-wise in terms of television shows, movies over the last 3 to 4 years have been romantic comedies with my wife. We've watched Sweet Home Alabama probably 50 times. We've watched a TV show on Netflix that we've gone through it probably 3 times now, called Heart of Dixie. It's phenomenal.
I've seen some of that.
We watch Hallmark movies. We watch Friends reruns, Seinfeld. Like that's it.
Yeah.
We laugh, and that's it. It's lighthearted. It's not serious. It's not dark. It's not adult themed. Any of that.
Yeah.
But then people were telling me about Justified, and I was intrigued by the whole story of, okay, it's based in Kentucky, which is a state that I love. And so I was like, okay, that kind of gets me interested in just the geography of the setting of the place, the show. And so I started watching that, and dude, I would wake up nervous. I would wake up, my eyes would open, and I'm instantly feeling this jittery nervousness. But then somebody else said, oh man, you got to watch Yellowstone. You got to watch Yellowstone. And so my wife, it was funny. I didn't know what it was. And we actually, excuse me, my wife and I tried it at Blackberry Farm this year.
Oh, cool.
And so we said, we'll just try the first episode. And we got 15 minutes into it. And some dude's banging some girl. And my wife was like, nope, we're out.
Okay.
And so we were out. And then I just kept hearing about it. And we had bought the first season to watch that first episode.
Spent the $20.
And I was like, and my routine these days, my routine, I sit in my office, I do my work, I order my lunch, I walk down to the taco place, pick up my lunch, come back to the office, and I dial up something for 15, 20 minutes.
Oh, yeah?
While I'm eating my tacos, I watch something entertaining on my laptop.
Oh, wow.
It's a 20-minute break in the middle of the day.
Yep.
And so I was like, you know what? I'm gonna go back to that. And dude, first episode, I was just like,
you got hooked.
I can't go back.
Yeah.
I gotta do this.
Yeah.
And so I've finished all 3 seasons.
Oh, okay. By yourself? Your wife didn't get back on board?
Yeah. No.
Oh, okay. I got you.
And it took me back to that Justified feeling of like, oh my gosh, like what's happening? Who's gonna die? Who's gonna get murdered? Who's getting scalped this episode? I mean, it was like, it is great television, but at the same time, it's just not healthy for me.
Yeah.
But then also, I can't wait for season 4.
Yeah. Well, if it's not healthy for you, there's no sense doing it.
I know, but I want to see what happens.
And the second half of season 2 and season 3, I haven't seen, so I don't know what's coming. But what I like about what I've seen so far is that. So I'm with you on like Sons of Anarchy. You mentioned another one that I think I watched a little bit. The Walking Dead. I actually really like The Walking Dead. But I agree with you on some of the dark. I don't like that if it feels dark. It's another reason why I don't like a lot of crime dramas and stuff like that. There's no real part of me that likes to kind of figure out why someone got murdered or whatever.
I feel like Yellowstone fits in that dark category.
It doesn't for me. No, it doesn't. It doesn't fit in the dark category for me. It is, there's definitely things at stake, and there's a great storyline, and I think they really spent some money on the film, and there's things at stake. So
you just called it a film. It's a TV show, Ken. That matters, bro. That matters.
It does matter, actually. So if, I think, I could see where it would feel dark to some, but, everyone has kind of a different tolerance, you know what I mean? Yeah. And so some people would watch Sons of Anarchy, and that might not even feel that dark, but it has re-triggered something in me that is like giving me permission to dream again.
That's interesting.
And that's worth $40.
What walk me through that a little bit.
Well, I've always been like a cowboy at heart.
Yeah. Like my heroes have always been cowboys.
From a very young age, like that's what I wanted to do. And then horses kept me sane in my teenage years. And Mom finally let us get horses at 13, and it was like our thing, and we controlled it, and it was our world, and we called the shots, and that was really good for us. And my younger brother and I used to have a glass jar, a mason jar that we would put pennies and quarters and dollars in because that was our rodeo fund. We were going to start a rodeo. Was
the Lapp Brothers Rodeo.
The Lapp Brothers Rodeo.
Well, there you go. And
so anyhow, then you get into late teens, and that kind of drops away. But the single thing that makes me sane the quickest is being around a horse. It's more than a dog. Dogs are great. I love dogs, but there's something about being around a horse where I feel like we have a mutual unspoken understanding, that is really, you can't get that any other place. Yeah. So horses, they do some really good soul work for me, and watching that show, I think I want to own a ranch one day. It doesn't need to be that ranch. It doesn't even need to be a very big ranch. It probably won't even be in Montana. I think Colorado,
Why Colorado?
Colorado's a great state. So, because the weed's legal there?
I don't
know. This jacket I'm wearing, Lone
Valley Ranch.
Lost Valley Ranch. That's in Colorado.
Lost Valley. Sorry.
So anyhow, I'm enjoying Yellowstone, and I'm happy to hear that you've seen it.
Yeah, I do love. I have a complicated relationship with the show, but I love it.
When you say you're doing okay, and the answer is not the greatest you've ever been in your life, how much of that is business related, and how much of it is personal with everything that's going on with the turmoil, politically, socially, racially, all of this, economically? Yeah. You know what I mean?
I think it's. I think it's probably, if I had to put percentages to it, I think it's largely spiritually, I think. Then there is definitely some business stuff mixed in. And then I think a very small percentage of it is the current climate, whatever you want to throw into those two words.
Can before we talk more about that, would it be okay to drink some of this?
I brought this. So this is literally one of my top 5 favorite bourbons of all time. So a good friend of mine, Dixon Dedman, revived this brand. This was his great grandfather's whiskey brand years and years ago, pre-Prohibition. And then Prohibition killed the brand, shut it down. He revived it in 2012, maybe 2011, 2012. They release their small batch bourbon once a year. And so this is batch number 2 that came out, I think maybe 2012, 2013, something like that. And batch 2 is one of my all-time favorite bourbons. And so,
batch 2.
Yeah. So this is batch 2 right here. See, number 2 right there on the bottom. This year will be batch 10 that's released.
But batch 2 was one of your all-time
batch
favorites.
Batch 2, batch 6, I'm a big fan. Batch 9 last year was my whiskey of the year, my favorite whiskey of the entire year. I almost brought that, but this is a in my opinion, this is a very, very special bottle of whiskey.
I've only had one Kentucky Owl bottle of bourbon, and dang, it was good.
Yeah.
Pour some, my man.
Yeah,
I've got a glass over there.
Yeah.
It's helping you get through the year that is 2020, I'm sure.
You know what? I'm trying to drink less of it because, man, for me, I'm drinking. I have been drinking more than ever before in my life. And
now you are?
No, not right now currently, but definitely.
Thank you.
In COVID, man, we went a stretch there. Such a good sound.
Cheers.
Yes, sir. Oh, man.
Oh, wow. Dude, it's
a different thing. That's a different thing.
That is remarkable.
Yeah.
Golly.
But there was a stretch there. Man, the whole lockdown thing. I mean, I'm working from home. We were homeschooling anyway. And every night it's like, well, cocktails, wine. I mean, like, what are we going to do tonight? And it was all the time. It was all the time. They're not during the day. And by no means, we weren't getting drunk or anything like that. But I mean, a 60-day stretch of like drinks every night.
Yep.
Every night. And I was just like, this can't be good.
Yeah.
It
Do you
cannot be
sleep good when you have a drink or two in the evening?
1 or 2, yeah.
1 or 2 you sleep
fine? Maybe not.
If
I'll
you
be a
have
little
3,
restless.
you start to, you get restless and hot, kind of sweaty?
Hot, sweaty, you know, maybe tossing and turning a little bit more than I should.
Yeah, I don't sleep good on alcohol, to be honest with you.
I agree.
Yeah.
No, I don't. Now, I think, a glass of bourbon, two glasses of red wine, I sleep great. I'm pro those things.
Yeah.
It's got to be in moderation.
Well, thank you for bringing this by,
Yeah,
man.
absolutely.
Kentucky Owl, that is a really, really, really good bourbon.
Man, it's one of my favorites.
Dixon Dedman's real nice too.
Yeah, he is. He's a great guy.
Spiritually, what's going on spiritually?
I mean, I think I don't trust God, and I believe that what He says is true. I believe it in my heart. I believe it. Wait a minute. Maybe it's my head. I don't know. I'm very conflicted about it. I think I probably believe it in my head. I believe that what He says is true. I believe that He will provide for us. I believe that He will take care of us. I believe, but it hasn't. The reality is, I don't really trust Him. I think it's up to me.
Yeah.
And that's a hard spot to be in. You know? When you think that it's all on you, well, then I got to be out there doing it. It's all on my shoulders. And if this idea doesn't work, then I got to have another idea in the pipeline. I got to be working on something else. I got to diversify. I got to do different things. And that I can fill up my plate with a bunch of crap that doesn't really matter.
Yep.
And, I'm just working through that. I mean, I think for the first time in my life, and it started 2 years ago, I've identified idols that I have in my life that are robbing me of true peace and joy. Mm-hmm. And I'm just every day working through that.
Yeah. One of the things that frustrated me this summer was sort of the ebb and flow of like spiritual vitality. Mm-hmm. And it was last 2009 and into 2020 was actually extremely good for both my wife and I spiritually, like very close to the Lord. And last year was an extremely tough year with work. And as you know, we had a bankruptcy at the beginning of this year. Yeah. And during that time, I mean, a high point in both of our lives spiritually. And then this summer we get out of that. And I was just, I guess you could use the word disappointed in myself for how like quickly I cooled off spiritually, because I didn't need that. I didn't perceive the need to have that every minute, every hour, every day reliance on just like on God to get through the moment.
And I don't have that. I don't. It's a big struggle for me. I don't communicate with him throughout the day. I don't talk to him. I don't bring him into situations I'm working on or dealing with. I want to. I haven't figured out how to solve for that.
Yeah.
Because I'm pretty good about spending some time in the morning reading the word, talking to him, doing a little bit of journaling maybe. For whatever reason, it feels better to me to write out my prayer. I don't know why, but it does. But then it's opening up a laptop and getting to work, and I never think to consult him throughout the day.
Sure.
And I do, and I believe he wants us to do that. And I believe he's there. He wants to help us work through situations. And now I'm saying like never. Every now and then I do.
Sure.
And every now and then I'm prompted, and I, for whatever reason, before a phone call, it's just, hey, give me the words. If this person needs something, help me see it. Help me be of service. Whatever, But man, that is rare, and those moments are few and far between.
Yep.
And so 99% of my day, I'm not in communication with him.
Yep.
And so that's hard.
Sure.
I don't think that set me up well.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think one of the things that I've always appreciated about you is your honesty. You're being honest, bro. I appreciate that.
It's another thing that my wife and I several years ago decided. We're sick of superficial bullcrap.
Yeah.
We're sick of it.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are.
I'm not you put me in a room with 10 dudes. Last night I had cocktails with 14 guys. 15 guys total. I was the 15th. And all of them good guys. But man, what's the first question they're asking?
How you doing?
No. What do you do for a living?
Oh. Yeah.
It makes me sick, man.
Yeah, I don't do good in those crowds.
It drives me crazy.
Yeah, me too.
And I do kind of understand it, but it just drives me crazy. And to me, that is a superficial question. It leads to superficial conversation.
Sure. Yeah.
It's linked, I think, to a bunch of superficial things.
Sure.
We decided years ago, we're not interested in that. We want real relationships. We want to be honest. We want to go deep with people. And life's too short.
Yeah, and it's evident somehow that leaks out. Like people can tell. I think it's one of the. It's not that my wife and I have talked about it, but I think it's safe to say it's one of the things that both my wife and I like about you and your wife. That you can just sort of tell when someone's genuine. People can tell. So
we try.
You are, and you're honest, and I appreciate that about you. And I don't think the God in your everyday moment is, honestly, I don't think it's something you do solve for. I think it's, I think faith is a gift from God, and I think
But you don't think you can cultivate that?
I think you can cultivate it, and I think what helps is, and this is where theology comes in, and like people kind of check out sometimes, maybe a little too quickly, but theology is just about like right thoughts about God and who He is.
Sure.
Here's what I think may help. I would submit this for your consideration. And it's not and I'm not just plugging the podcast, but I would say we had an episode that came out today with Dr. David Filson. Genuinely one of the smartest people that I've ever been around in person. He is a pastor, theologian, professor. I think he lives out by you, Andrew, in Bellevue, but he's at Christ Pres, and he teaches at the church there or school there. And then he's a professor at various colleges. And that was it was both encouraging, challenging, the whole nine to me, because Jesus means something to him. And he kind of talked through like the rationale, the reason, the substance behind why Jesus means so much to him. An example is God the Father is singular, simple, and spiritual. So those sound like big words, but single as in there is one God. And then, of course, we have God the Father, God the Son, and God the Holy Spirit, but it's the single God, the God of gods, Lord of lords, King of kings. Simple. And this is a newer thought to me. But it's the idea that God is not the sum total of his characteristics. He is his characteristics. So it's not like God has a lot of love. God is love. And so, and then what was the other one? Spiritual, which means God is not a composite form, because if God was a composite form, God the Father, like you and I, that means that he would rely on his parts to be the whole. God doesn't rely on anything. So why am I saying this? This means that God is everywhere all of the time, and it's not like there's a God the Father composed of parts or a substance or a composite or like a person. Now, Jesus Christ is incarnate, so that's God, and that's why that matters so much, because that's God coming to earth and incarnating in human flesh. But I think why the simplicity of God has become so intriguing to me is because I did think at some point, I guess I just kind of always thought, we're going to see Jesus one day and we're going to see God. Like, we're going to see God the Father. And that's going to be like a magnificent kind of person type being with lights and things. God the Father is not, he's everywhere. He's here. So you
don't think we'll see him though?
No, we will. Okay. So we will see him. This is how Pilson talked through it. We're going to see God the Son, Jesus Christ. That's going to be like holy God and holy man. So we will see Jesus Christ in like human form. Mm-hmm. But no, we won't see God the Father in that form.
So you don't think Adam and Eve saw him?
They might have saw him him. How can you see him in human form if he's not human form? So no, they didn't see him in human form. They didn't see him in composite form. How did Filson say it? They saw him like your soul would see him?
Like your soul would see him.
Like your soul would see him and know him and understand him and kind of
How does your soul see something?
Well, that's a great question.
These are big words,
These
man.
are big words, yeah. So anyhow, I think that if you were to listen to some of that episode with David Filson, I think that could be helpful.
I'll definitely do that. When I said solve for it, I don't think it's a problem to be solved. I don't think I'm ever going to be solved of this.
Yep.
That's another, realization that has just hit me, and maybe in the last 6 months is like, it's a journey.
Yeah.
I'm never this side of heaven going to have it all figured out, ever. Mm-hmm. It's always going to be a struggle. It's always going to be that. I'm not going to perfect my faith down here in this physical, finite human world. I'm not going to perfect my faith.
Yeah.
And it's just, I do want to figure out, I think he wants to be in close relationship with us. And when I spend 30 minutes with him in the morning and I don't talk to him at all, again, all day until maybe a few minutes as I'm drifting off to sleep.
Yep.
I don't think that's what he desires out of the relationship with us. I think he wants more.
I totally agree with that. Well, I think, and it's not that he needs it, I think we need it.
Of course,
we need more.
He knows, yeah.
I'm looking for a quote from Keller on this, because one of the things that Andrew and I have been talking about some is the sovereignty of God and how that is, when, shit really hits the fan, the sovereignty of God is something that cling to. And Keller said something about,
do you think the proverbial shit has really hit the fan these days in our culture, in our world? Did you consider the time that we're living in as shit's hit the fan?
No.
Really?
No, I think it can get worse. I think there's plenty of poop in the fan.
What?
I'm not finding the tweet, but the premise basically was that the understanding between the sovereignty of God and our responsibility is a very, very, very complicated matter. Yeah. And the truth is, it's above our heads. Let's just be honest. You know what I mean? When I talk about like shit to the fan, I'm talking about like when you go through a bankruptcy, the one thing that you have, or you go through a very difficult time in life, a death, a loss of a job, whatever it is, uncertainty because of COVID, all of these types of things. it is a sure foundation to rely on the goodness of God and the sovereignty of God in all things. Like that really did get us through. And I think it's people can rely on that. And then also to your point, this is where I kind of feel like I struggle the most is, so you have the sovereignty of God. I don't feel like I struggle with my salvation, with like, am I going to get to heaven and knock on the door and they're not going to answer, or like that? I don't really, am I good enough to be a Christian? You know, like those are not really things that I struggle with. But I do struggle with like things at a wisdom level, because Proverbs does talk about wisdom and like not following worthless pursuits and doing things like there is like a way to do things best. And then there's a way to do things not good at all. And if you don't do things good, they're not going to work out. And so at that level, like we have some responsibility there. So while God is still sovereign over all things, we also still have a responsibility. And like at that secondary level, not at the level of salvation, but a secondary level of like, you know, is this podcast going to work? And is this a good use of time? And, you know, other things at that level, that is where I do kind of, I don't know how God's sovereignty fits into all of that.
Well, walk me through the process though. The process that the wise way to do things. Have you figured that out? Or do you have some insight into if you're going to set about doing something?
Yeah.
What is the best way to do it?
Yeah.
Because it's a huge one I struggle with. You know, I'm blanking on it. It's in Proverbs. And he'll make your path straight. What's the first part though?
In all your ways.
In all your ways, acknowledge him. Yeah.
Yep.
Like, what does that mean?
Yeah.
How do you acknowledge him in all your ways?
If I may.
I'd love to hear
Can you
this.
Google that verse, by the way, Andrew? Because I think that's one of those verses that gets a little bit.
I don't even have to. It's Proverbs 3:6. In context, Proverbs 3:5 says, this is NIV because I grew up on NIV, but
trust one of those guys.
Yeah, sorry.
Shout out to ESV, the real translation.
Yeah, I am straight ESV now, but NIV, I believe, says, trust in the Lord with all your heart. Do not lean on your own understanding, and in all your ways acknowledge him, and he will direct your paths. And so it's like, that's great, but what does that mean?
Exactly.
Like what is that about? Like, how do I practically apply this? And a couple of weeks ago, I was with some other church friends from another church here in town, and I was explaining to them how the sovereignty of God, kind of what Kent hinted at earlier, was a great rest for me, and all that 2020 was. I'm in the event field. I lost my job due to COVID-19. There was no work, therefore they had to let me go. And I was wrestling hard of how, like, where is all of this going? Is God's sovereignty true in all of this? And really came to terms with the sovereignty of God in such a way that was a major comfort to my soul. Of practically, when you think about how the sovereignty of God works out, we would agree that probably God has preordained everything that has happened, will happen. And when you have that belief, there is no, if only I did this. That doesn't exist. The way that our lives transpire is the way God had planned it all in the beginning, no matter what our limitations currently are. And so I can fall back on that and pray a prayer such as, God, I don't know where I'm going. I don't know what to choose between option A, option B, or even option B, C, D, and F, whatever this combination of things may be. I'm not sure how to go about this, but I'm going to trust. I'm going to trust you, and I'm going to do my part. I'll do my part, and you sovereignly work in that the way that you want it to happen. God loves that prayer, and I've prayed that prayer almost every day for the last 4 or 5 years, which have been tumultuous years in my life. Some of the worst years of my existence in this life have been in the last 5 years, and God never once failed to come through when every other human agency was found lacking.
Wasn't it in? It was in Yellowstone. The dad.
It all comes back to Yellowstone.
Kevin Costner, who's like the man in that show, John Dutton, prayed at one of these fancy balls and said, God, we're praying for rain and a little bit of luck, and we'll take care of the rest. That is not the correct way to think about it. It's not a correct theology.
Right.
One of the things that I noticed from our former lead pastor where we go to church, Ray Ortland, is that he both believes in and relies on the sovereignty of God and works his butt off.
Well, Dave always says, pray like it all depends on God, work like it all depends on you.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know exactly what I think about that. I think you should obviously work hard. I think where I'm kind of seeing some areas maybe that I hadn't seen before is when I have an idea that actually works, that is still from God. It wasn't my idea. You know what I mean? That idea was from God. If I have experiences that I can rely on to give me a better understanding on how to structure something else in the future, that's not necessarily like I can take credit for that, because God gave me the breath in my lungs. God put me here. He walked me through those experiences to begin with. So I guess at the end of the day, it's like we're still all relying on God on all things. So when it comes to like wisdom, how do you go through something with wisdom? That's something you asked earlier.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's a very big question.
And so do you believe, and I'm not saying I disagree, I'm just trying to think through it. If something is successful, if something works, then it definitely came from God?
I don't know if it's quite that clean, I guess. I wonder. Let me think. All good things come from God. You know what I mean?
Sure.
And I think that's true for non-believers
Does successful
too.
equal good?
I think it can. Yeah.
I totally agree it can, but does it always?
I mean, I don't think it could always, right? I mean, there has to be times where someone is successful and that's like the worst thing for them.
That's what I'm saying.
I
tend to think that I think that I've done things in the past that were successful by the world standards, made money, weren't evil, and yet looking back, I wonder if they weren't distractions from something I was really supposed to be doing.
100% agree with that.
So I love the Lord,
yes,
and it was successful, and so, but does that mean, was that a good thing for me?
Well, that's a great question. When you think about that, the honest truth is we wouldn't have the Chris Thomas that we have today right now if you didn't have that experience. We just wouldn't. You know what I mean? Whether that's success or challenge or failure. Who knows what type of Chris Thomas we would have if you didn't have some of those successes.
The thing is, do you believe in, and I know the answer to the question, do you believe that God's sovereign? Do you believe he has a plan for your life? Is there anything, any person that can disrupt that plan? I mean, I think he's either in control or he's not.
I agree with that.
Okay.
So I guess, I don't know if there is any way that you can disrupt that plan.
I think you'd be the same Kent with or without the bankruptcy.
Oh, I disagree.
I think you'd still something else would have happened to mold you. I think he's got a plan for your life.
I agree with that.
And nothing can disrupt or throw off that plan.
Yeah. Okay.
Period.
Okay. At that level, I agree with. It's just at that point, it's also conjecture because it's like, I don't know. What else would have God used?
I get it.
And God, why couldn't he use better circumstances to bring us to who we are today? You know, I mean, and that leads us to the question of suffering, which that's a very big question that I honestly, I want to have we have someone scheduled that I want to get into suffering with on the podcast because I have some questions around that. And there's just so much suffering that goes on in the world. You know, how do you reason through that?
When are you going to have Joe Rogan on this podcast?
I'd have him on tomorrow if he'd get here.
Well,
what do you think? How much of Joe Rogan do you watch or listen to?
Quite a bit.
Me too.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. I can see his influences, Kent. What's the Austin, Texas thing about here?
So Austin, Texas, first of all, it's Andrew's favorite city. Second of all, it's my favorite
tacos
city.
For days.
Third of all, we're only doing in person on this podcast.
Yeah.
So, and virtual works totally fine. I just think there's a little tiny bit of magic dust
I hate
when
virtual.
You're in person. So we're going to do this in person. We could just do this in Nashville if the show ever gets a little bit more traction. You know, maybe someone would use some Southwest points and fly in here. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But So while hopefully that would happen, we'd still be looking at primarily people that can drive or are in Nashville, that type of thing.
Yeah,
and look,
yeah.
I mean, we could go for a while with just people in Nashville. But Austin, Texas is bigger than Nashville for starters. It is a little bit more advanced than Nashville, let's just be honest. And
Well, define advanced.
Well, it has a stronger tech community. It is, I mean, Nashville, not council members, people from Nashville have flown out to Austin before to see what they're doing. This was a few years ago.
Yeah.
So, you know, that's where that is, and it's a bigger city. And we just feel like if we're going to go in person, by going Nashville, you know, I don't know, 3/4 of the time, and we're going to be here. This is where we're doing it every day. And then, I don't know, every other month, we'll go spend a week in Austin and knock out like 10 or 15 conversations in 1 week.
Yeah.
Just work our butts off. And then have
And
that dynamic
barbecue.
some barbecue,
That's right.
have that dynamic between the two cities. So I like that dynamic. I also think it's good for like bringing in another city's worldview and people and networks and those types of things.
Yeah,
So I think
yeah.
it's good for the listeners and good for the show. So, I mean, look, if there was another city, I would put Denver on the list, and then the list gets, and then that's honestly the list is very short thereafter.
But so you want to do these, like on our podcast, I travel to anybody. I've done them in Charleston, Savannah, Birmingham, wherever.
Yeah.
And with just my little Zoom recorder and whatever. But you don't want to do that.
We're not going to do that.
Yeah.
No, I did some of that too with the GBS podcast.
Yeah. I remember you came out to my place.
I did, yeah, and it was cool. But that works a little better if you just do an audio, and audio and video works too.
I get that.
But what I like about back to Joe Rogan podcast, because you're right, there's some definite influences here. Watching, and I'll listen to his podcast, you know, from time to time, but I watch a lot of his YouTube clips, which, and now, you know, apparently we're losing on YouTube, but
you'll be able to watch on Spotify.
Yeah, you're right. There's something about like looking in like the studio where people can like see that same thing. You know, there's a shtick to that as well. That so
I
I mean,
agree.
it works.
I
It works
100%
totally
agree.
either way. But
So how will you recreate this in Austin?
we don't entirely know yet. We are going out there the week of December the 7th. Shout out to anyone who might be listening in Austin, Texas, or know people in Austin, Texas. If they have suggestions of people to come on the show, we're open to suggestions. We have a few episodes already scheduled, and we have no idea where we're going to record. But we have until now on December the 7th to figure it out.
Yeah.
So we did.
Lapppodcast@gmail.com.
Yeah. We did get an offer for a church. I'd prefer not to meet at a church because I want a neutral meeting ground, and for people that aren't believers might feel uncomfortable, you know, doing a podcast at a church. So I'd like a neutral meeting ground. But yeah, the short answer is we don't know yet, but we'll figure it out. It can't be that hard, right?
You just reach out to Joe, use his spot.
I don't think I'd want to use a studio. Did I just say that out loud?
Really?
If Joe said you can use my studio, I would 100% do it. But it's pretty bad.
What do you mean it's pretty bad?
Have you seen it?
Ooh.
Have you seen the new Joe Rogan studio?
Yeah, you don't like it?
No, it's awful.
Okay, well, it's not your style. I thought you were commenting on like the quality, or you just don't like the style of it.
I don't like the style of it.
Yeah, that's
No.
cool. That's
I
cool.
don't-
Did you like the
no
style
one
of his old
does.
studio?
Loved it.
Well, obviously Joe likes it, or he wouldn't
I
be
don't
there.
think he does.
Really?
No. I think at some point they change it. Yeah, I mean, they've already changed some things.
What makes you say Joe Rogan doesn't like the style of his new studio? What have you noticed, or what have you heard that has made you say that?
It's very... So I haven't noticed anything from him. I think that he is big enough and successful enough and proud enough that he's not going to change too quickly. And honestly, I think if he stays at that studio, he's going to be totally fine. People get used to it or whatever. But again, this comes back to part of the things that you liked about the last studio. Like there was space to breathe. It looked like a place where you'd want to hang out at and have a drink. Yeah. I don't want to have a drink in that spaceship. The wall is right behind his head, for starters. So it's very, very small.
Yeah. But don't they have space outside of the spaceship for having drinks and hanging out and that kind of thing?
Hopefully.
But when you go in the spaceship,
it's like, in the spaceship. So hopefully. I don't know what he's going to do, to be honest with you, but it's so small that camera angles, like on the guest, will like have Joe's head in it and everything. Yeah. I mean, look, I I'm a huge Joe Rogan fan.
Something's working.
I still am. Something is totally working.
Yeah.
And he can do whatever he wants. I just don't like the studio, and I haven't heard anyone yet that does.
It'll be fun to see what he creates there in Austin, because I think he's going to do a lot of things.
I agree.
Yeah.
He went from making a decision to actually being in that studio in 6 weeks.
Yeah.
Which with someone at his level, that's crazy. So if they just tear that studio down and build a whole nother one, it's still mission accomplished.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, and plus,
Yeah.
I don't think they're going to.
He
He can do whatever he wants to do. What has been going on at MadeSouth? I'd love to get an update on some of your businesses and MadeSouth in general. And are you said pivot, but if COVID goes away anytime soon, you're going to get back to events? Like what's been going on?
Yeah, I don't know that we'll ever do events again, ever. I kind of don't think we will.
Wow.
Yeah, I don't think we will. You know what? I take that back. I think there's a chance that our MadeSouth market event comes back once a year around the holiday time, our holiday market.
Yeah, well, that's very different than not doing any events ever again.
Right. But I think there's a chance it doesn't. But if we do an event again, that will be the event.
Okay.
We're not going to do the whiskey event again. We're not going to try to do Gumption again. We're not going to try to do the slider event again. We're not going to do those.
Because of COVID.
I think COVID has been a catalyst in making a final decision. But, I left Dave's in 2014. And I wanted to start a small family business. Andrew, do you mind bringing us some Glencairn glasses?
That'd be great.
I would love to smell. I love smelling this bourbon. Thank you, by the way. I left Dave's. I had the greatest job in the building. I'm genuinely convinced of that. I don't think anybody else in that building before or even after had a better gig than I had. I'm convinced of it. Thank you very much.
Thanks, man.
And I would never have left there for just another job. I cannot imagine going to work for anybody else. I love the guy, had a great job. He was very kind to me, very generous. I left there to start this thing that would promote small businesses, promote Southern culture, give me tons of time freedom. And I look up 6 months ago, a year ago, I'm the busiest I ever have been. There were moments that I thought I might be going crazy, maybe. And I was like, why? It's not what I wanted. Why am I trying to get in the restaurant business? Why am I trying to start a food and wine festival? Why am I trying to do a podcast? And I'm doing 2 podcasts. And why am I doing all of this? And it goes back to my idol of comfort, self-sufficiency, and pride. Those are kind of the 3 big ones I deal with. I got to do all these things because if I don't, how are my kids going to eat? I got to do all this stuff because if this one doesn't work, I got to have a backup. I got to do it all. And I was just like, my work life wasn't that fun. And I want it to be fun. I want to do fun things. And it's a little bit of a bone of contention with my wife and I because she's a stay-at-home mom who homeschools our 4 kids. That's a hard job.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, she works so much harder than I work, Kent. And my job is sitting in a cool office every day, emailing, recording YouTube videos, going to eat with a chef, having drinks with so and so, playing golf with this person, sitting with Kent, enjoying bourbon, doing this is my work.
Yeah.
And I created a job that's fun. I don't want to do things that aren't fun for me. But it was like I just felt like I was doing too much. So COVID happens, and 3 out of 4 of our events canceled this year.
Which ones?
We did our first whiskey event on leap year day, February 29th. So barely under the wire.
Okay.
And then we made an agreement with 2 other guys to start a hospitality company. We made that decision on Monday, March 9th. And on Friday, March 13th, I had my very first meeting with a potential investor at 10:30 in Cool Springs. We had about 40 people lined up. Hey, yes, we're excited to give you money to start a restaurant hospitality group. And I had my very first meeting, dear friend, love him to death. And he was like, okay, I like the plan, made some notes. I want you to answer these questions. I'm seriously considering giving you $300,000 to help start this. And then, 1:30 p.m., national emergency, COVID, lockdown, shutdown. The world changed. I mean, it's been insane to watch. Had people lined up who wanted to talk about investing in a food and wine festival. There were so many things. There are moments where I think COVID just happened for me. Like to just stop.
Yeah.
Stop doing all this. Stop. And so we canceled our second event of the year, which was it was going to be a trip to Kentucky for about 40 people, a very small, highly curated distillery visits, barrel picks, really great chef dinners with whiskey pairings, and it was going to be fantastic. So we canceled that. Then our second event, or our third event of the year, was our second whiskey event. It was going to be August 1st, I think.
Southern Whiskey Society?
Yep.
The big one?
Yep. And the state would not issue our event permit unless we agreed in writing to have 50 or fewer people there.
Ooh.
And so we had to cancel that event. And I had purchased 3 barrels of whiskey for that event. It's a lot of money. And there were, now granted, all of our other commitments we could get out of, but I've got 3 barrels that I've committed to buy that, okay, now I got to figure out how do I share these barrels, and you could translate that to not lose money on these barrels.
Yeah.
And share them with people. And so we figured out how to do that, and that was great. But during that time, leading up to, okay, how are we, ultimately the state came in and said, we're not going to issue the permit unless you agree to do that or agree to have it at this limit. But in reality, we made the decision the day before the state told us that we weren't going to do the event. And the state's decision was just kind of confirmation for me. But my wife and I sat on the front porch for probably 3 hours and just talked about, okay, why do we want to do this event? Is there anything inside me that doesn't want to do this event? I can look back at that specific event. I love bourbon as a hobby. It's a very healthy thing for me as a hobby. Candidly, I was kind of growing tired of being in the business. Any connection of it with business. Because I look back and I go, okay, in 2018, our venue, which is where my office is, the factory in Franklin, comes to me the day after and is like, hey, somebody destroyed the bathroom last night. Not in a going number 2 way, but like a
too much to drink,
threw up. One of the doors was off its hinges.
Oh gosh.
Well, I didn't like the way that made me feel.
Sure.
Last year we had a vendor at the event get so drunk that he exposed himself to a female volunteer.
No.
Oh.
A vendor.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
And we had to deal with that guy. I didn't like the way that made me feel. I didn't that's not who I want to be.
Right.
I don't want to create things that lead to somebody doing that.
Sure.
There was a year or 2 years ago at an after party, which it wasn't my after party, but it was a lot of people who came in for the event who decided to go have an after party at a restaurant real close there, that a fight broke out. It's just like, I look back at milestones.
Brought to you by liquor.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That people who, I can handle it. You can handle it. A lot of people can. And for me, it's a fun hobby. And it's still to this day, one of my favorite experiences, sitting down with 1 or 2 or 10 buddies, opening up some fun bottles, sharing them, sitting around talking. I don't smoke cigars. I know you do. But if guys want to smoke cigars, if we have some good food, I love that experience.
Yeah.
Not everyone can handle it that way. And it sometimes leads to things that I just go, I don't like the way it makes me feel knowing that I helped create something that led to that. And so we were having a lot of that conversation. And I don't remember, oh man, golly, it's somewhere in Ephesians. I literally did one of those things where I was like, I'm just going to open the Bible. Flip pages. And I started reading about it was specifically talking about when Israel, golly, I need to find it now. I want to read it. But the specific scripture says, in returning, you'll find rest.
You Google that, Andrew, see if we can find it.
It's in Ephesians. I'm 99% sure. And I was just like, okay, wait a minute. And I kept reading it over and over again. In returning, you will find rest. And I'm tired. And like events, without fail, every event we do, 2 weeks before, a week before, sometimes 2 days before, I get sick.
Like physically sick?
Physically
like you'll get
sick.
Like you'll be what? Like you have the shits, you'll throw up?
Oh, no. Like sinus infection.
Oh, okay.
Just,
gotcha.
Some of those.
Taking a toll on your body.
Yeah. And the stress and the events is something that I've fallen a little bit out of love with the bigger events. And so I was just like, well, you know what? I think we cancel this event, and I think we got to figure out what to do with the brand. It needs to make some money. My kids grow every year. Their clothes get smaller. They still like to eat. I've got a 12-year-old boy, a 10-year-old boy. They eat more than my 4-year-old boy ate 3 hot dogs the other night. Dad, can I have another hot dog? What? 3 hot dogs. He's 4. It's insane.
And they don't grow on trees.
That
food doesn't grow on trees.
We just kind of made the decision. Okay, we need to return this brand to where it started, which was a subscription box business. I wanted to be able to go to these makers and say, I want to buy your product. I love your product. I don't ask anybody to give me product for free in exchange for promotion. I got an email the other day from, but it's a decent sized little subscription box. Nothing wrong or evil about this, by the way, but it's a standard practice in that world. Got the email to Eli Mason. Hey, we want to feature your old fashioned mixer in our December box. Here's our deal. It's going to go out to however many boxes. We give you a stipend of this many dollars, which was like, I think it was $1 a bottle, something like that. And we send an email to these, this list, and we include in it is basically I'm giving up the product in exchange for promotion.
Yep.
And I just don't like that.
You don't like the way it feels as a maker?
I don't, and very, very few times have I ever seen that promotion is going to be worth what I ate in the product.
Sure.
And so from the very beginning, it was like, we're not going to do that. We're going to buy product from people at a fair price. Now, sometimes it's, normally that, do you have any knowledge of like the wholesale retail model pricing structures and stuff like that?
In your industry, probably less so.
Okay.
But
so
in general, sure.
If I make a widget, if I make a thing and I sell this thing on my website for $20, most of the time I wholesale this for $10.
Sure.
50%. Well, every now and then we run into people who they sell this on their website for 20 and they want to charge me 15. And I'm very candid and honest with them. Like, hey, it just doesn't work for me. If it works for you to do $9 or $10, awesome.
Yep.
If it doesn't, that's cool too. We'll still be friends. But so I got to be honest with them. It's got to work for us. But I buy product from them at a fair wholesale price. I love when people say to me, this is the biggest order we've ever had. I love that. And so I buy their product. I put it in these boxes. I send it out. I tell, we design this little thing that tells you about all the people inside.
Yep.
And there's no, hey, go buy this here and use a code and we track it and we get a percentage of your sales. None of that. Our desire is that you would become a raving fan of the people who are inside this box because they're all small businesses who are trying to make it like you, like me, like everybody. Go buy their product. If you like this coffee, hey, go buy some bags of their coffee. If you know somebody who loves coffee and now you like this one and you go, hey, I'm going to buy a bag and give it to Andrew because I know he likes coffee.
I do.
Support. Me too, but I'm trying to quit it. Support these people. These are small businesses. So that's been our mission from day one. And it was it feels to me like going back to that. In the middle of COVID and all this stuff, I'm watching these other people struggle the way we are because a lot of these businesses are dependent on that wholesale model. Mm-hmm. They have the White's Mercantiles or the whatever of the world who buy their product from them at a wholesale rate, and those people are having to close their doors.
Yeah.
And so they're struggling not getting those orders. And so to me, it's going back to why we started it. And if I could clear away all this other stuff and just have a really great e-commerce box subscription business, I'd be tickled with that. Yeah. And I would get some rest. So then I dialed up, my next call. It was like, okay, we made the decision to stop doing these events for the foreseeable future and maybe never again. The whiskey event, I don't think I'll ever do again.
Okay.
I can't imagine wanting to go back to that except for money. And I don't want to make decisions for money. No.
Sure. Push your glass over here. I'll pour
absolutely. But if I could build this e-commerce business, that'd be great. So I called a guy who's become a good friend. His name is Josh Eberly. You may have actually met Josh through Woodtex.
Yeah. I've
Conklin Media.
I've not met him, but yeah, I know who you mean.
I don't even know if I should say. I don't want to divulge our secrets. But
it's pronounced Eberly, by the way.
Eberly?
It's a Mennonite name.
Jeez Louise.
Come on.
I don't. Okay, that's good to know, but I don't think I always just call him Josh. So I've never. Hey, Josh Eberly.
That is how you pronounce Josh. So you're good there.
I'm good on that one. But I called Josh and I was like, hey, I have 3 ideas for the MadeSouth brand. And Josh has been helping us sell Eli Mason for the last year and a half, almost 2 years now, by growing the e-commerce side of Eli Mason. And so I've seen that track record. I've seen what that team can do and how if they say they can sell a lot of something on the internet, I now believe that. And so I said, I've got 3 ideas for the MadeSouth brand. And which one of these do you think, knowing what you know, looking at everything, doing some research, had a call, which one of these do you think you can sell a lot of on the internet? He was like, boxes, subscriptions. I think we can sell a lot of this on the internet. And so that to me, it was where I was leaning. It's where I kind of wanted to go. But now I've got a guy who is an expert at e-commerce brands, growing e-commerce brands, who's telling me he sees an opportunity here as well. That to me, all those things lined up.
Mm-hmm.
And so that is the direction we're headed.
Wow.
But there's building of a new website. We want to offer some maybe different things in a little bit different way I'm still working on those things. So I'm trying to get all that done, but it's like every day, I'm ready to get it going. I'm ready to get it going. I don't want to, I feel like Josh and his team are ready to begin pouring gasoline on a fire.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't want to pour gas. I got to have that fire built first.
Right.
So we're building that fire.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Wow. One of the let me ask you this.
Mm-hmm.
Do you mind sharing what the other two ideas are, or is there those things you want to kind of keep in your back pocket because you might utilize those also?
One of them was kind of a, I asked him this question. Could MadeSouth become the online destination for buying anything that was made in the South? So could you come and filter through literally thousands of products
Mm-hmm.
and break them down by, I only want to see leather goods made in Texas.
Okay.
I only want to see, handmade soaps made in Virginia. Could you do something like that? And he hated that idea. Too much inventory, or you'd have to negotiate drop ship relationships, or it just becomes way too complicated.
Yep. Competing a little bit with Amazon.
Yeah,
a little bit.
yeah. I mean, now
Not entirely.
a lot of these brands that we work with, they're not on Amazon.
Right.
That's. But it was like, could this become an e-commerce store that you buy? You could buy all these individual products directly from us. However that works. He did not like that. And the third idea was, I don't remember what the third idea. I'd have to go back and look at my notes.
This is fascinating, by the way, and thanks for talking us through it, because we do have a lot of people listen to this that are in small business or are kind of entrepreneurial or doing a gig full time or on the side or whatever. So it's fascinating to hear you talk through the reasoning and how it like transpired, and because I think while there's probably no one listening to this that's like in the exact same scenario, there's still like principles and lessons you can extrapolate from this. Is like, you see, like, here's a case study. Here's what happened. Here's how he thought through it. Here's the decisions he's made. Here's what he's going to do going forward. And those like principles and lessons like apply to other, obviously, businesses and industries and those types of things. So thanks for sharing that. And one of the things that I feel like you have always been really great at is being able to pivot, is being able to leave
when you do it enough, Kent,
shut something down. But so that leads to
becomes second nature,
right? Okay, so let me ask you this: do you think that you're going to regret any of these decisions to shut down or pivot? And let me tell you why I asked that. Correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems like it's not super hard for you to kill something. It's not hard for me to kill something either. It's when it's time, that's an easy thing, and sometimes even take a little bit of sick joy in doing it. And but there have been times where I think I have killed things too early.
Yeah.
And I'm not talking about Woodtex or Riverwood cabins.
Yeah.
What
are you talking about?
That was maybe a little
What
too
are you
late.
talking about?
I'm thinking of a couple of projects we had going kind of leading up to when it was clear that the family business is in a real bad situation, and basically clearing out everything so that I could focus on that and trying to fix that. And some of those things that we cleared out
Gospel business strategies?
That's a fine example. I don't regret the decision, actually. But my point is, there was just someone on here yesterday who said that she believes that everything that she loves will leave her. I believe that everything that I love will either leave or die. That's kind of what I think.
And I don't trust God, so we make a perfect
right?
trio,
Okay, so having said all that, then, do you think that, is there any part of you that I assume doesn't wonder at this point, but do you think that a year from now you'll look back and wish you hadn't killed some of these things or hadn't shut them down?
I can't.
And I sort of hate the question because it's like you do have to decide. You know what I mean? You have to make a decision and move on.
I can't look back at something that I've ever killed that way that I regret. I don't look back on any of them and say,
including shutting the subscription box down the first time?
I don't regret it.
Okay.
I don't regret doing it the first time. The first time around, I've thought so much about this. When we started the business, we built it on a poor foundation, technologically speaking, and from a process standpoint. I was having stuff shipped into my garage.
I remember that.
I have 2 big freaking dogs and 2 cats and 4 kids. And trying to teach an 8-year-old how to pack a box, you end up with a bunch of boxes missing things. That's what happens. And the website that we had was built, it was cobbled together to try to make subscriptions work. We tried to force something. It wasn't technologically sound, and it wasn't sound from a process perspective. And so our final shipment, December of 2016, we shipped almost 800 boxes all across the country. We were only doing it once every 3 months.
Mm-hmm.
But I was like, dang, 800 of these. But it was a freaking nightmare. It was a nightmare. Well, 4 years later, I think about it like a toolbox. I have tools in my toolbox now that I didn't have 4 years ago. I have web developers now who know how to build a proper subscription website that does what we need it to do to avoid me having to do a crap ton of manual fixes on when things go wrong. I have a great fulfillment partner who has a proper bonded warehouse that we can ship product to. I never see the product. We have Conklin Media. We have our partner who knows how to grow e-commerce brands. We have all these things that we have access to now that we didn't have 4 years ago.
Yeah.
That to me, it makes more sense now because I feel like we can build it with a stronger foundation.
Yeah.
And so, and we've not been trying. We threw the idea out there when we had to cancel our first event. We just started doing these one-off monthly MadeSouth boxes. So you can't go to our website right now and subscribe to anything. You can go and purchase a single box.
Oh, okay.
And then I have to tell you about it next month. Hey, if you want this month, you got to come back and purchase again. That is laborsome a word? If it's not, it should be.
It is.
But it's laborsome. Like
Sure.
I got to go sell people every month. But without really trying, without having the subscription model, renewing revenue at our disposal, without having Conklin starting to pour gas on the fire yet, without having a proper, without having these things, people have bought boxes over the last 6 months. I think small business is being decimated in the country right now. I think people recognize that and they go, okay, this is a good way to do that and also discover. It's a fun way to discover new brands, fun way to discover new things that are being made in the South. If you're into small business, if you're into Southern culture, if you like eating and drinking and tasting different things, you love handmade items, this is singing your song.
Yep.
And without really having any of these new tools set up or involved, we've been moving some boxes that I go is a pretty good. It's a pretty good indication that once we do have a proper subscription model, that you can kind of choose your own advantage. Hey, I only want to spend $49. Oh, I want to spend $99. Oh, I want to do it once a month. I want to do it every quarter. You can kind of choose a little bit.
Interesting.
If you're like $100 every month is too much for me. Okay, well, if you want to do $100 every quarter, that's cool. Or if you're like, I only want to do 4, we're going to give you some options and you're going to be able to control your account.
I see.
I feel really, really good about it. I'm just anxious to get it going.
Sure. Yep.
I'm ready to get it going.
I like it. So MadeSouth may never do events again.
I think the holiday market
may do a holiday market.
I think that, to me, that makes sense with the overall mission. And it makes sense. It's a natural tie-in that all of these people that we've been telling you about throughout the year, come meet them in person.
I agree. And it's not like, and let's be clear on this. So when you say you're getting out of the events, but you still do that, I mean, that's your big event, right? I mean,
it's our big event. Yeah.
I've been to some of those. Like
we have 3,000 people came to that thing. Yeah.
You have done a tremendous job with that. So if you have that annual one big holiday event,
sure.
That's when retail money is spent. Everyone's in the holiday mood. You get to be in person. And once we get this virus, the Chinese virus out of here.
The China virus.
The China virus.
China's going to pay in a terrific way.
Yeah. People can come together, have a good time, meet these makers, all of
that
this.
Makes a lot of sense.
Hopefully you make a ton of money. Heck, you might even make enough money from that one event to support your family an entire year. But you're not just doing that one thing. You're having subscription boxes around it, and then you're using the connections you have with distribution and so forth to kind of automate that as much as you can.
Yeah.
E-commerce, e-commerce.
You said that like a gangster.
E-commerce.
We want to get into the e-commerce business.
You know how to put the gas on that.
I think so. Yeah.
I mean, you do. I mean, you even like Conklin aside. I mean, this is the space that you know. I see it. So is that going to be it? Or when you say pivot, is there some other things you have in mind to build around this?
I mean, we will offer a couple of other different products. So subscription boxes are going to be the focus. But there will be, as part of an e-commerce effort, we're going to be able to offer people other things to buy that fit within the mission.
Okay.
So the mission is we support small business in the South. We want to highlight, sing the song of whatever, however you want to describe it. We want to shed a light, shine a spotlight on people who we feel like are making really great things in the South.
Yes.
Because we love small business and we love this region, right?
Yes.
It's pretty simple. Subscription boxes. We also are going to offer 3 kind of standalone gift boxes.
Okay.
So the subscription, it's a little bit hard for me to communicate, but the subscription box, you have no idea what's going to come in that.
That's right.
That is a surprise and delight thing. If you like discovering new things, that's going to be awesome for you. Some people don't like that. They want to see something before they buy it. We will have 3 in the future, maybe more, but I think we're going to start with 3 standalone gift boxes that you can see what's inside them before you buy them. And so that may mean that, okay, Kent is into cocktails, and so MadeSouth has a curated cocktail box. And so I can see everything that's in here, and this is a great gift for Kent.
Yeah, it's always available. It's not just available this quarter. It's always available.
They're always there. Mm-hmm. And so those 3 will be Taste of the South, because people like to eat. And we surveyed our audience about this. We sent emails and said, take a 2-minute survey. Tell us, what things are you interested in? And the top 3 were Taste of the South, which is all things eating and drinking. Housewarming or Southern hospitality. We're probably going to call it the Southern hospitality box. Candle, coasters, a dish towel, handmade soaps. Somebody buys a new, hey, here's an awesome housewarming gift.
Yep.
And a cocktail box. Those were the top 3.
Interesting.
So we're going to offer a MadeSouth cocktail box, a MadeSouth housewarming, a MadeSouth Taste of the South box that you may go, oh, Andrew loves cocktails. It's his birthday coming up. I'm going to go pop on this. I'm going to have it sent to him. Little handwritten note. Happy birthday, Andrew. Whatever. So we'll offer that. We're going to offer what we call maker collaborations, where I'm an idea guy. I see somebody who makes something, and I go, oh, wouldn't it be cool if they made this? And wouldn't it be really cool if they made it just for us? And so I'm going to a handful of makers right now, and I'm saying, I have an idea for a product that it's in your wheelhouse. You make, pottery is an example. I love pottery, by the way. I'm obsessed with pottery.
Really?
Oh.
Pottery.
If I were actually going to make something, I would be a potter. That's what I would be. I've thought about taking classes. Really have.
That'll give you some insight into the sovereignty of God right there.
Probably,
Was it clay in the potter's hand or whatever? Yeah.
And plus that scene from Ghost. That was pretty hot. What?
I haven't seen that.
Is he Mennonite too?
No, he's not. He's sane.
Anyway, everybody else who's seen them, that scene from Ghost with Demi Moore and, gosh, I'm blanking on his name. He was in Roadhouse.
When I said he's sane, I don't mean he's sane because he's not Mennonite. I mean he's sane because he hasn't seen Ghost, which I don't know what you're talking about. Is it a TV show or
no? It was a movie.
What is this?
This is the scene.
Is this the pottery scene in Ghost?
Yeah. I love this, by the way. So Demi Moore.
Demi Moore?
Demi, potato.
She's making some pottery. Oh, jeez. Oh, the record player comes off. Okay.
See, you follow me now. Hold on.
I'm interested now.
So, Patrick Swayze. Righteous Brothers.
Huh?
And I believe, I forget the premise of this movie, but I believe that Patrick Swayze was her husband who died.
Okay. What are we watching?
Never mind. So he just
you can
comes
turn that
back.
off, Andrew. Thanks.
Yeah, he comes back. I don't remember if that's that scene or another scene, but so he sits behind her and like joins his hands with her, and they start working the clay together.
Oh, now that's
it's
some
a
pottery.
sexy scene, man.
That's super.
What I'm saying.
I could totally get into that.
That's what I was talking about.
For sure.
Imagine you and your wife working some pottery.
For sure.
There's going to be some baby making after that.
Okay,
You know
I didn't
what I'm saying?
think that was part of pottery making, but now that I get it.
It's not part of pottery making. I was just making a cultural reference whenever I was okay.
I now understand why you have a thing for pottery.
So I go to this potter that she doesn't have some massive following on Instagram, but her work is beautiful.
Yep.
It's really awesome. And I say, okay, can you make a coffee mug for us? Just for us. And I have a little bit of, maybe not insight, a little bit of influence.
Influence, sure.
Like, hey, could it be this way? Could we do this? And so that design is going to be exclusively for us. There's a candle maker in Charleston, South Carolina that we're working with that's going to create a candle just for us. It's going to be our blend, our fragrance. The actual design of it is going to look different than all the other things, but still be consistent with what they do as a brand. And we'll be able to offer that candle. We'll be able to offer that mug, a few other things that are exclusive for us. But we buy them 50, 100, 200 at a time. We store them. It goes back a little bit to that second idea, but it's not thousands of SKUs. Mm-hmm. It's a few select things, highly curated. But I'm buying that product. So I'm not, there's no, hey, if we sell 50, I only want to buy. I'm committing to buy product from you. Yep. So it's good for you. I'm supporting you. I'm going to tell your story when people buy this. And hopefully they're going to come over to you and buy more of your stuff. So we're going to do a few of those things. And then the final thing we're going to try to do with it is corporate gifting. I think that's a big opportunity that we've never really tried to do.
I totally agree.
But if a company, a Dollar General, a Bridgestone, a Nissan, a whoever said, we want you to create a custom MadeSouth box for our 1,000 team members. And here's your budget. And we want it to be kind of co-branded. So we want you to tell our story, a little bit of that with your branding of this box. We want to be able to do that. But it all fits with supporting small business in the American South.
I love it. What strikes me is that your mission hasn't changed. Your strategy largely hasn't even changed. Your tactics have. So you're changing what you're doing, but you're still going about things largely the same way, which has clearly worked, and it's going to work, and your mission is the exact same way. I like it.
But if we can do those things, that'll be... If that business can do what we really believe it can with those different elements, an e-commerce, really, e-commerce is split up between boxes, subscription boxes, gift boxes, and maker collaboration products. All right. Mm-hmm. So if it's split over those three things, and then we have a corporate gifting underneath that, I'll get a lot of rest.
Yeah.
I'll be able to rest and not be so crazy busy trying to seek out a million different things. Yep. I'll have 3, like MadeSouth, I've got Eli Mason, I've got the sticker brand. I can do those 3 things and make a really good living for my family. And I'm not flying on private jets. And truthfully, I don't want to. I don't have any desire to live that life. But I can support my family well, have a ton of time freedom, build a lot of really good relationships, have a lot of fun. That's what I want to do.
MadeSouth, Eli Mason. What is the sticker brand?
Good Southerner.
Good Southerner, which is things that you do tend to work out fairly well. I don't know if you notice that. And if they, and you're not willing to, and you're willing to pivot if need be. Yeah, so,
but it's funny because I think that if people know me, they know me for the MadeSouth thing, and it's the least successful.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Are you still doing the restaurant?
We're trying. We're trying. Yeah, I mean, it is a and that deal is, so I have a chef friend, Alex Ballou, who's at Dallas and Jane. His restaurant was, it still exists there, but it's not open to the public in Murfreesboro. But Alex and I become good friends. We have a concept that we think is awesome, and we want to launch it in Franklin. We'd like to do it in Franklin, but we can't find the money for it.
Okay.
Can't find the money for it, and we don't want to go borrow the money.
Sure.
We want an investor. We don't want to borrow the money.
Was that the venture that you had the 40 investors lined up and someone who was willing?
Well, so I mean, it's an interesting story. So originally we were going to move his restaurant, which is called Dallas and Jane. It's a 50-seat restaurant in a strip mall next to a dollar store in not a bad part of town, but in Murfreesboro, Tennessee.
Sure.
And his food is beautiful, delicious. It's elevated. It's fine dining. And when I go there, now granted, you could go there and eat for $40 if you want to. But when my wife and I would go there, we'd be there for 2 hours. We're going to have a couple drinks. We're going to try many different starters. We're going to have dessert. We're going to walk out at $200.
Yep.
And when COVID hit, the original idea was moving Dallas and Jane from Murfreesboro to Franklin, because I sit on the board at Visit Franklin, which is kind of the tourism arm of Williamson County. And all the data that we see, people who visit Franklin and who live there, number one thing they want, more dining options.
Interesting.
It's the 13th wealthiest county in the country. And we have 4 upscale restaurants. The community is asking for more of that, but nobody's giving it to them. And so I'm still convinced that restaurant needs to live in Franklin, Tennessee.
Yeah, it sounds like it would do good in Franklin.
I believe in it with all my heart. Now, when COVID hit, the conversation shifted a little bit to, okay, well, how quickly is the public going to be ready to go sit indoors for 2 hours and, with changes in the economy, drop $200?
Mm-hmm.
And we said, I mean, I'm ready to do that. I still enjoy doing that with my wife. But I understand not everybody is.
Yeah.
And so I don't know that the wisest thing is to try to launch that restaurant in the middle of all this.
That makes sense.
Right.
Did you have a lot of investors that backed out because of COVID then?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
And they weren't, to be completely transparent, none of them were committed.
Sure.
We had a lot of interest.
Yep.
But nobody had said, oh, yeah, we're writing a check and we're backing out.
Right.
But all of that interest was like, okay, wait a minute. Our business is cut by 40%. We're shoring up cash. We're not doing it. You want to open a restaurant? What? I mean, we got a lot of that. So the conversation became, okay, well, we have other concepts that as a group we thought down the road we'd like to launch. And one of those popped out several people who are deep in the restaurant business have told me over the last few months, fast food is crushing it. I know people who operate Chick-fil-A's, they're up 80%.
Golly.
And their
80%?
dining rooms aren't open.
That's insane.
Drive-through only.
Wow.
Crushing it. Fast food is crushing it. Fast casual is hanging in there and doing pretty okay. And it's like, I know some guys who operate a really great fast casual taco spot in Franklin. And they're like, we're up 3% over last year.
Okay.
Fast casual, hanging in there, doing okay. Fine dining, dead. It's on a ventilator. And no pun intended, but.
Why do you think? That's sort of surprising to me.
Well, I mean, fast food, you can get it. You don't have to get out of your car.
I sort of get that.
Fast casual is sort of the same way. It's very delivery dudes friendly. It's very
sure.
I can Uber Eats it to my house. If you want to go in, you might be that. You could potentially be there for 20 minutes, 30 minutes. You're not sitting down for 2 hours. It's easier on the wallet. So the spot that I love to go to for lunch a lot is Mojo's Tacos in Franklin. They're in the factory. They sell $4.
Is that fast casual?
Yeah, $4 Americanized tacos, fried chicken taco, hot chicken taco, Mojo fish taco. I mean, they're great, but it's a inexpensive Americanized taco. It travels well in a styrofoam box.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me, I don't have the COVIDs. Fast casual is doing pretty good.
Yep.
Fast food's crushing it. Fine dining. Not enough people are ready to go sit down, spend 2 hours indoors, and drop a couple $100. It's just not revived yet. The number one restaurant in the entire world is in Copenhagen, Denmark. They pivoted to be a wine burger bar.
No kidding.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm curious how much of that is economic impact, which I suspect is the least piece of it. How much of it is I don't want to be around other people, and how much of it is distraction. And by distraction, I just mean sports are down this year, and not just because they're politicized. It's because really you want to get into it just has less, because of all the noise and everything else going on, something about sports doesn't feel as right as it usually does. So when it comes to fine dining, the reason I think economic impact is, there's a lot of companies doing great right now. And I know there's a lot that aren't.
Yeah,
but when it comes to fine dining.
But if you look at the ones that are doing great, who are they? Amazon,
anything tied to heck, we have a digital marketing firm over here that's busier than they've ever been. Anything tied to the internet right now is blowing up.
Because internet shopping is way up.
Right.
It's been, I was going to say I hate to say it, but I don't hate to say it. COVID's been great for Eli Mason. People were drinking more and shopping online.
Good. I'm happy to hear that.
Yeah.
But outdoor products, sheds, people I know selling sheds, they're having the best. Some of them are having the best year they've ever had.
Home Depot.
Outdoor play sets.
They're doing home projects.
Way up. All of this type of thing.
They're doing home projects.
So it's not doom and gloom. So there's a lot of people that are doing just as good as they always have or better. So that's why I'm kind of curious on the fine dining. I wonder how much of it is it just doesn't feel right.
Well,
to go out and spend $300.
I genuinely don't care what your position is on masks. I don't care. I think you should have the right to make the best decision that you feel like is best for your family. I also feel like I should have that right. All right. My wife, masks do something to her state of mind. She doesn't like not seeing people's faces.
Right.
She doesn't like not being able to breathe very well.
Right.
We went to one of our favorite restaurants 3 weeks ago. Delicious food. Had one of the worst experiences ever. The people are awesome. Food is awesome. But everybody's wearing a mask.
Right.
It was in Davidson County. We're the only ones sitting in the restaurant not wearing them.
Well, no, everyone else sitting down has them off, right? It's just a wait staff.
But it just is.
It's still different. I agree with you. It's still different. It is. Yeah, I agree with that.
And it wasn't enjoyable for her.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people feel that way.
I agree. And that's what I'm saying. I wonder if that's not why fine dining is down. It has less to do with economic impact and more to do with the experience just isn't what it was, and we're going to take a little pass right now.
I think it's partially that, and I think there is still a strong constituency who thinks it's unsafe. They think that. I don't agree with it.
Yep.
But they think going and eating in a restaurant for an hour and a half, 2 hours, that's a risky move. That's not a wise thing for me to do.
Sure. Yeah.
Right now.
I agree with that.
Yeah. I think there's a big part of people who think that.
Are you going to be doing a podcast?
Yeah. We just did our first episode. So the last episode I did in person was maybe it's right before COVID. It was early March with a guy named Sean Dietrich, Sean of the South. Fantastic human being. But I'm the same way with you. I like to do them in person. Now, we don't do the video side of it. So I've got my little kit and I can travel around and I can go to Charleston or Birmingham, wherever. And we had a bunch of people lined up to do that. Either they were coming into Nashville or I was going to go to Birmingham and spend a couple of days and knock some out, you know, that kind of thing. And then all this happened and people, we don't want to do that. You know, and I get it. I get it. But I'm like, well, I don't feel like I have to put the episodes out.
Right.
I just put them out when I want to.
Yeah.
But then Kerry Bringle, who is Peg Leg Porker, so he's restaurateur here in Nashville, but caused a little bit of a stir when he put out an open letter to the mayor.
Yeah, I forgot about this
COVID.
a few weeks ago, right?
A few weeks ago.
Yep.
And so I had texted him and said, hey, let's do a podcast, talk about this. He was like, yep, I'm in. So we did that.
Oh, cool.
And put that out maybe last week or 2 weeks ago.
Okay, and that's the MadeSouth podcast?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep.
So
used
podcast,
to be called Southerner, and then we changed the name of it because I'm like, it gets back to that simplifying and going back.
Yes.
I just feel like it all needs to be MadeSouth.
Yeah, I love it. So I'm happy to hear a podcast will be part of your strategy moving forward with that because you're really good at that.
I love doing them.
Yep.
I don't know that it has some big impact on the business, but I love doing them. I love doing them. So I'm going to continue to do that. And then we did launch a YouTube channel.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
MadeSouth YouTube channel?
Yeah.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah.
All right. I will have to check that out.
I think it's pretty good, man.
I'm sure it's awesome.
I found a guy, my buddy John Acuff has a YouTube channel and he's been having a lot of fun with that. And so he and I had lunch a month ago, 2 months ago, and we were talking about that. He was like, you should totally do one. And he's got a guy who I've just fallen in love with this dude. Great guy and knows what he's doing, who John just records the videos, uploads them to Dropbox. The guy does all the editing magic, all that stuff, the tagging on YouTube. He knows the algorithm. He knows YouTube. And I was like, put me in touch with that guy. And he's been great. And I think he does a really great job with the videos.
Cool. What is John Acuff doing on YouTube? Is it comedy? Is it
no? It's not comedy. And he knows this. I don't watch his video. I don't watch his videos. But I take that back. I've watched one or two, and they're like, they fit with what John is about, which is, whatever subject he's really hardcore on the moment.
Okay,
whether it's like I know he did
like
one
educational,
on like,
inspirational,
motivational, educational, inspirational, but also some like I know I did see one that he loves to write. He loves notebooks, and he did one like, these are my 3 favorite notebooks. And so he held them up, talked about each one, something like that.
Some people would still, it's not that I'm hearing this. I take that back.
So you are hearing this, whatever.
No, I'm not hearing this. No, because I've not had these discussions. Do you think that some people still have the perception that John Acuff is still sort of like recovering from parting ways with Dave Ramsey? And is that true, or has he kind of found his new path forward, and that they, he and Dave and that company sort of their paths overlap for a period of time, and now they're separated and everyone's good? How's he doing?
You got the high pitched laugh. Here's the deal. Really, really and truly. And I've never said it publicly. How many people listen to this?
Not very many. You're fine.
Okay. One of my dreams is to have Dave and John hug it out. They're two of my favorite people.
Oh, yeah?
And they, I don't know. I've never talked about this with Dave. I've talked about it with John quite a bit. I know John would say he didn't handle that deal exactly the way it should have been handled. I don't know if Dave would say that about it. And to be really clear, I don't have clear knowledge about what the inner workings of what happened were. Something went sideways. They parted ways.
Yeah.
But they're both really good guys. And I don't know if people perceive that John has not recovered, but John's recovered. John's doing just fine. And I think it's my opinion he's exactly where he's supposed to be, doing exactly what he's supposed to be doing. And he's really deadgum good at it. And I think the market appreciates that.
Yeah, I'm happy to hear that. I'm not surprised at all. John is very smart.
Yep.
By the way, he dabbled in a little bit of stand-up a while ago.
Yeah.
Is he
Did
still
you go see it?
I didn't.
Oh,
no.
man.
Is he still dabbling, or did he kind of leave that be?
I don't know. I think he'll do it again.
Okay.
He did it for 2 nights. Maybe 3 nights. I don't remember.
So it's not something he's doing.
No, it
on
was
a consistent...
kind of a one-time thing.
Okay.
He just wanted to do it.
Okay.
So he worked hard at it, and real comedians might hear that and go, "What? No, he didn't work hard at it." But it's my perception he worked hard at it. And Kimberly and I went, and it was so weird.
Because you know him so well?
Well, yeah, and we got there a little bit late, and dude, I'm not kidding you. They're like, okay, follow us, and they walk. And the table that they take us to is pressed up against the stage, right in front of. I mean, it's dead center. Like I'm looking up like this, going like, and it was weird.
Yeah,
because the guy, and you want to make eye contact, like.
Right.
But you don't, because he's doing his thing and he's trying to be a pro, you know, and I get that. But I don't know. Something about it tells me I think he'll try it again, but he might not.
Okay. I mean, if he's like any other stand-up, though, the first 100 shows or whatever suck, right?
Yeah,
I mean, it's I
don't think he's pursued it at all after that.
I see.
No.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you know who Theo Von is?
Yeah.
He moved to Nashville.
Funny. Yeah, he did. Yeah,
I think he's funny. I think his podcast. I've tried to listen to his podcast, and I had a hard time kind of getting through it.
I have not listened to his podcast.
Yeah, it's like an hour and a half long. It's just, I don't know. I think if you're a fan, it works, but if not, it was a little dry. But his best of clips, I mean, on Instagram, I mean, he's hilarious. I mean, I think that's somewhat of a big name for Nashville to get. I think that's great.
I absolutely think that's a big name for us.
We're also getting, apparently, we've gotten
Ben Shapiro,
whose name I recognize, and also Tommy Loren, who I didn't recognize. You ever heard of Tommy Loren?
She's the blonde Fox
That's
News
a she?
reporter.
Oh, I thought it was a dude.
So I heard this spring or summer that Tommy Loren moved to town. I thought it was a guy. Didn't know who it was. Paid no attention. And then she's super. I guess she's pretty famous, and she's a political commentary with Fox, and she lives in 12 South. But Ben Shapiro is a big deal.
Ben Shapiro is a big deal.
Ben Shapiro and Dave Ramsey are going to have some communication, don't you think? I mean, they already have. I think Ben's been on the Sunday Special.
I didn't know that. But the Sunday Special, what's that?
I think it's Ben Shapiro, one of his shows. Yeah, Dave. I think Dave Ramsey's been on it.
I thought you said Ben's already been on the Sunday Special. I was like,
no,
what?
Ben had Dave Ramsey on the Sunday Special. I think.
Yeah.
But yeah, Ben Shapiro is sharp. Speaking of all that,
sharp.
What are your thoughts on what's going on this year, politically and socially, and all of this?
Oh.
How do you handle that? Knowing, or what are your thoughts on it, particularly from the Southern point of view?
Yeah.
I know you're a fan of the South, which I respect and appreciate.
Yep, I am.
And I know you've said in the past the South has a complicated history, which of course it does.
Absolutely.
And I'm not necessarily asking you to kind of go into this history of the South. I mean, everyone's pretty familiar, but I mean, there's a lot of turmoil that's going on this year, man.
Yeah, well, I get it.
What are you making of what's going on?
Oh, Kent. How much more of that bottle's left?
Enough.
So I think you got two things. So you mentioned politically, and then you mentioned everything else, and then the South, which I'm assuming has to do with the racial stuff.
Yeah,
I don't think you
racial,
specifically
social
said
stuff,
that, but that's what I'm. Politically, I hate politics. I absolutely freaking detest politics with all my heart. I believe the United States government is the largest freaking company in the entire world. And I hate career politicians. I hate people who make crap tons of money off of getting power. I just hate politics. I have principles. I have things I believe. But I freaking hate politics. Now, that being said, I've been obsessed with this year.
Oh, you have?
I can't stop watching.
Well, what do you watch? How do you watch with no internet?
Man.
Do you go to the office and watch it or what?
No, we have an antenna.
Oh,
you know what I'm
okay.
talking about? Like a digital antenna?
Yeah, okay. Gotcha.
So we watched the first debate, which was, golly, just a dumpster fire.
It was entertaining.
I didn't think so. It stressed me out. I hated every minute of it.
The worst thing that could be said about the first presidential debate is that my 8-year-old son did not want to stop watching it. It shouldn't be. It should not be entertaining for an 8-year-old kid.
Yeah,
it should be boring as
crap.
Right.
You're exactly
right.
And
he should want to go to bed or at least go watch something else.
It was a dumpster
fire.
It was a dumpster fire, and there are a lot of things. Listen, man, I just don't know how openly I can talk about this.
As far as we're concerned, you can talk openly.
I know.
We don't have anything to lose here.
I know that. But like, I don't think our president gets a fair shake. I don't think that. I don't. I do not believe that he is the monster that everybody says he is. I've seen it. It's so fascinating to me that when you talk to somebody, you talked about Cuties and how the guy said, "Oh, it's a TV show." He didn't even know that it wasn't a TV show. There are certain things that I think are attributed to our president, that he said this or he said that. And then you go watch the clip that they're referring to, and he didn't say it.
Right.
He just didn't say it. And yet we get told over and over again, he did say it. He did say it. And you brought up Orwell a little bit in our text thread.
Yeah.
And it absolutely reminds me of the Ministry of Truth. I don't know how it couldn't. Over and over and
What's
over
that,
again.
a book?
Have you not read 1984?
1984.
No.
Okay. You have to read it. It's not a long book. My guess is a paperback copy, 300 pages, 350 pages, something like that.
I mean, I've heard of it. Yeah, but I haven't read it.
It's a very entertaining book. I think it's a great book. But the Ministry of Truth is a department in the government of the book 1984, whose job it is to go rewrite stories that fit the narrative that the government wants you to believe. So, I mean, even like people in the Ministry of Truth, they get jobs sent to them, clips of newspapers that their job is to go back and find that and rewrite that story because what the government wants you to believe has changed.
Sure.
And so it is, we get told over and over and over again that he said this thing about this group of people, and then you go watch it.
Yeah.
And he doesn't say that. And yet over and over and over again, and I know really smart people, really good-hearted people who desire to seek the truth, who say, I have a conversation with them and they're like, oh, but he called all Mexicans rapists. he's got to be a racist. And I say, well, have you watched the clip that people refer to? No. Why would I go want to do?
Exactly.
Well, when you go watch it, I don't necessarily agree with everything he said, but he doesn't say all Mexicans are rapists. He doesn't say that.
Yep.
And yet, over and over and over again, we're told he did.
Yeah.
That's weird to me, man.
Yeah.
That's really weird to me.
But it's the speaking in sound bites, which I mentioned earlier in this conversation. Like, man, I hope someone doesn't make a sound bite of what I said. I forget what it was, but I was just listening to Mark Cuban on Kelsey K. She used to be Fox and she was at NBC, and now she's Megyn Kelly show. She just started her own podcast. So far, what I've heard of it is pretty great. She had Mark Cuban on Megyn Kelly show, her new podcast, and she was pushing Mark to condemn China for what they're doing with
the NBA
and everything. And Mark was refusing to do it. What he kept saying was, I oppose civil rights violations everywhere of any kind. And she kept saying, but will you condemn China with how they're, treating a certain group of people? And he just kept saying like 3 times, like, I oppose or condemn civil rights violations of any time, anywhere. And finally, he was, after the second or third time, he's like, look, I'm not going to say it because I'm not afraid of you. I'm afraid of the sound bites. They're going to take what I say and just perpetuate it everywhere. Yeah. And that's the world we're now living in.
I understand it.
I largely agree with your assessment on that. I think that
have you seen?
I think it is weird that we have those are the 2 choices that we have, Trump and Biden.
I agree.
I also think that when you actually go and look at how actual video clips on YouTube or whatever of Trump interacting with reporters and everything, like when you actually see some content there, it changes your perception of like, well, that's not quite as bad as I thought it was going to be. That's not quite as awful as I thought it was going to be. I'm not necessarily speaking in defense of some of the weird stuff that he does. I mean, the best thing he could probably do in general is just to come off of Twitter, to be honest. If he just come off of Twitter, that would really help.
But let me ask you, and this is more of a tactical question. And when I say this, like I statistically speaking, and this is a proven thing. I think you can probably go find this. 96% of the media coverage is negative on the president.
On Trump, sure.
So how can he properly communicate with normal, average people, unfiltered, without having spin on it?
I think that's a great point. I totally agree with that. I just think the Trump unfiltered on Twitter, it's not advancing his cause. A lot of times he's shooting himself in the foot.
And I hear you say that. And people were saying that in 2016 before the election.
Yeah.
How unpresidential, how he was a buffoon, he was an idiot. Somebody's got to take the Twitter away. And what happened? How can you say that doesn't advance his cause?
Well, but it's it's not 2016. It's 2020, and we've had him as president. So you have this honeymoon phase where it's like, oh, here's a new person. What's he about? He's not in politics. What's he going to do? Is he going to change things?
Yeah.
And now we have, I think there is a group of people that were open to it, maybe even voted for him, kind of like some of this newness and rawness and everything, and now they're just tired of it.
Oh.
You know what I mean?
See, it's funny. It's funny. Genuinely, everybody I know who did vote for him is going to vote for him again.
Oh, I'm not surprised to hear
and
that.
Everybody that I know who didn't vote for him is not. Some of those people have converted, and they are going to vote for him this time. And then a lot of people who are on that, they're never Trumpers.
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah, I agree with that. And also, I'll say this, just with what we saw with Biden, with the way he gaffes and just flubs and misuses the English language in general. Yeah. He performed way better at that first debate than I was expecting him to do.
Come on, man. Oh, just shut up, you clown. Like what? It was crazy to watch though.
It was crazy to watch on both sides. Yeah. I think Trump should have let him talk a little bit more because I think Biden would have talked himself into a hole.
I agree.
And I just didn't think neither party handled that very well. All I'm saying is, again, when you see what YouTube algorithms feed you and things like that, if you're kind of if you watch some things that are more conservative, YouTube and social media is going to feed you algorithms that show just Biden tripping over every word every single time. Yeah. At the presidential debate, though, he didn't. He did fairly well. Like, he seemed a little bit more coherent than I was expecting. So
I predicted it in 2016. I can put you in touch with a dozen buddies right now who thought I was the biggest idiot on the planet for saying that guy was going to win the election. But I am convinced, and I voted for him, and I'll likely vote for him again. And here's why. I see him as a monkey wrench that can potentially break an unhealthy system for our country. I think that our U.S. government, the government that runs our country, it's not by the people for the people anymore. You got a very small group of people who gain power and wealth off of doing what they want to do for us. And I don't agree with that. I want term limits. I don't want career politicians. I don't want lobbyists. I don't want those things. And I looked at it in 2016 and I went, okay, I don't believe the guy is an idiot like everybody says he is. I think he's actually really quite smart. I love that he wasn't a career politician. I love that. And yes, he might break the whole thing. And I'm okay if that happens.
Yep.
I kind of want it to be broken.
Yep.
I thought about it in terms of the way Dave would think about it when talking to somebody. Somebody calls into the radio and says, Dave, I got $200,000 in debt. I make $32,000 a year. How am I going to get out of this? And Dave would tell them, you absolutely can get out of it. You can. But your life is going to suck for a while.
Yeah.
It's going to suck for a while. Many years.
Yeah.
You're going to have to go get a second and a third and potentially a fourth job.
Yep.
You're not going to take your wife out on a date at all. Kiss dates goodbye for the next 5 years.
Yep.
You're not going to take a vacation. You're going to work absolutely as hard as you can around the clock. But you're going to be able to get out of it. But it's going to suck for a while.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought of it as Donald Trump as president, it could potentially suck for a while. But it's the beginnings of the breaking down of a system that I feel like is already broken for the public. It only works for a very small number of people.
Yes.
And that's what I like about it.
Yeah.
If I'm telling you, if Kanye West were on the ballot in all 50 states, or is he on the ballot in Tennessee? I don't think he is. I'd vote for that guy. Have you read his platform?
I have not.
Go read it.
I didn't know what is he running for president?
He's on the ballot in a few states.
I didn't know that.
But if he were legitimate, I love somebody who thinks differently, who comes from a different background. They're not a career politician. They don't have. If somebody comes from that perspective and can put together a platform that I believe in philosophically, I'm good with that. I'm good with that. Now, the race thing, that other side, because we are like, I love the South. I have said, I don't run away from conversations about the sins that we've committed as a region, our past. But me personally, I don't feel, I think there are a lot of people out there who it is their calling to point out the things that are going wrong.
Sure.
That's not my calling. My calling is to point out the things I think are going right, to shine a spotlight on people who I think are doing good work. That being said, it's something I've struggled with because I don't believe people are having rational, kind conversations about this topic right now. And do I think that what happened to George Floyd was right? No, I don't. Do I think it was a racist hate crime? I have no idea. I'm not in that dude's heart. I don't know what that cop was thinking. I don't know how he feels towards black people. I think as a culture, whenever that happens, we largely jump to a conclusion that it's a racist hate crime. And I think most of the time it's probably a police problem. A lack of training, lack of compassion for your community. That's what I think is probably the issue. I don't know that it's always a racial issue.
Mm-hmm.
Because I see poor white men get shot and killed by police. I don't know what to make of that.
Yeah.
Where I come from, any person that is sitting across from me or on a Zoom call or on a telephone call or I'm meeting them at an event or I want to treat them the way Jesus wants me to treat them, period. I don't care what they look like. I don't care what they believe. I don't care what religion they are. I don't care what sexual preference they have. I don't care about any of that. I want to love them and treat them with kindness and dignity. I want them to feel welcome. And it, to me, like that might seem oversimplified, but that's what I try to do.
Yeah.
But I've had people reach out to me and ask me for a pie chart that breaks down the racial demographics of makers at our events.
Customers or other vendors?
No. Well, we call them makers, but you could call them vendors.
No, but who's asking for the pie chart? That's
people
what I'm
on
saying.
Instagram.
Oh, okay. Got it. Yeah.
Random people that I don't know.
Yeah. So maybe not even customers.
No.
Yeah. Got it.
And what do I do with that?
Right.
Because when somebody applies to be part of our event, we don't ask them for a photo of themselves.
Right.
We ask them to show us what they make. Show us a link to your website. We want to do but what am I supposed to do with that?
I think you can ignore that because what they're asking for is equality of outcome.
Yeah.
And you cannot guarantee equality of outcome in this country. I think you're right in that we have occasionally a police problem because I think sometimes the police do act in a way that is racially motivated, just like I think that other humans sometimes act in a way that is racially motivated. I have zero idea whether the George Floyd thing was racially motivated or not. I really can't comment on that.
But according to the popular opinion in our culture, was that a racist thing?
Absolutely, because here's the other thing that I think does not get the attention that it deserves is it's sometimes a police problem and often a media problem. And listen, I am not comfortable with calling race relations in this country good at this time.
Right.
I think we have a problem.
I agree. Yeah.
I think until our pastor, John Farmer, can go run in the neighborhoods that I run in, can wear a hoodie and feel as comfortable as I feel when I wear a hoodie, can have the same conversations with his teenage son about where he can go on a run, where he can go on a drive, until he can experience life in this country at the same degree that I can. Like the work's not done, right? There's more to be done. Okay,
and I'm genuinely curious about
saying
this.
that. So let's come back to that. So that's what I'm saying. So I hear, even if it's just how people feel, okay, there's still some work to be done. Having said that, and the media, what they have done in this country this summer is crazy. Okay, because what happened to George Floyd is unacceptable. I don't care what color his skin was. That's absurd. You know what I mean? When you hear like Joe Rogan talk about it, who actually knows Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and some of those things, it's like, no, you would never put your knee on someone else's neck. You're going to kill them. Okay, so that's just. But the problem there wasn't because we were giving the police too much money. The problem there is they either didn't have enough of money or enough of training or something went wrong there.
I agree.
And again, it might not even been racially motivated. I think of something like the Ahmaud Arbery. I still feel like Ahmaud Arbery, that poor guy who was shot at 1 o'clock in the afternoon on a Sunday jogging down the road. I feel like.
Do you think that was racially motivated?
That to me is harder to explain in terms of not being racially motivated than some of the cop stuff, to be honest.
Okay, well, so can I ask some questions?
Well, just because what I would say on that is, and please ask questions, but it seems to me, less likely that the guy would have died if he'd have been white. Okay, it seems to me that's all I'm saying. But let me come back to the media.
But why? Why if Ahmaud Arbery had been white, would he have had less chance of dying?
Not knowing those guys. Georgia, 1 o'clock in the afternoon. A guy's on a jog.
But hold on.
Pickup truck, gun.
Totally get it.
I just haven't experienced that with like white on white as much. Now, I will say, we're not hearing about cops killing white men. Mm-hmm. And just FYI, that happens a ton.
Oh.
A ton. But the media doesn't portray that. The media is always shining the light on, cops on black crime. And by the way, some of the time, these guys are black cops and brown cops. Did you know that statistically, black and brown cops are more likely to shoot a black and brown person than a white cop is? Like, these are the things you're not hearing. So I think the media has really done us a disservice.
Why do you think they've done that?
Because I think they're for the left, man. I don't know why. I just think the media, you can't really trust that narrative anymore. I'll give you another example. Andrew, what's his name? Jacob Blake?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Jacob Blake.
Sure.
When you see the short video of cops shooting, Jacob Blake in his back 7 times, and that's what gets circulated, and that's what gets talked about, and that hits mass media attention, it just goes viral. That causes a reaction in the American people. And that's one thing. And what you didn't know is that in the past, he digitally raped this lady, which I don't even know what that means.
I think it means, is the word digitally? So I think I think it means with your fingers, a digit. Aren't these considered digits?
I have no. So maybe that's
what it means.
So there was that involved. She's the one who called the cops. Apparently there was interactions between the cops where they tried to subdue him that didn't go well. He got out of control. I can't actually comment on whether they should have shot that guy or not. I don't know. I don't have enough of information. All I'm saying is when we see what gets centralized and focused on, it generates a perception, it generates an opinion, and when you play that out over a 6 or 8 month period of time, you can really start to shift and shape people's worldviews through the media. So,
but do they want us mad at each other? Do you think?
Apparently, because it generates ad revenue. So Sam Harris, here's the best thing I heard all summer on this. You would enjoy listening to this. Sam Harris's podcast. What is it called now? It is called
Making Sense with Sam Harris.
Thank you. Making Sense with Sam Harris, episode 207. It's something about can we come back from the brink. It's an hour and I think 52 minutes long, and it's solid. You would like it. It is objective. It's intellectual. It's well reasoned. It's good. So cops have 50 to 60 million encounters per year. 50 to 60 million encounters. That's so much, dude. It's so much. I just heard today
700,000 cops in the country.
So those 700,000 cops, if what you say is accurate there, have 50 to 60 million encounters per year, 10 million arrests, and of those 10 million arrests, about 1,000 will wind up in deaths. Okay? So how many of those 1,000 deaths are warranted? Honestly, I would probably assume a fair bit. I mean, I don't know, But there's guys out there that you try to arrest them, it's not going to go well. They're going to pull a gun. They're going to do something.
Something's going to happen.
They're going to die.
Yeah.
And then that's just, there's no other way around that. And then there's going to be accidents. And then I would assume there's some of those probably that are racially motivated, but not to the narrative that the media is portraying.
Yeah.
So I think the media is doing a disservice. And I don't say that in terms of saying, hey, we don't have a race issue in this country or we don't have further to go. I just think that I think the media has a large responsibility, and I think the lawmakers, to be honest with you, I think the lawmakers have a big responsibility.
How so on the lawmakers?
When you look at some of the drug laws that we have, it's hard to deny that some of those are racially motivated. Yeah.
I get what you're saying. Does that come out of Just Mercy at all? Have you read that book?
No, I haven't. I watched the movie. Haven't read the book.
So much better than the movie.
I'm sure.
Oh my goodness.
All purists about anything would always say that.
I'm a dude.
But no, I believe it.
I read the book and it was eye opening. It absolutely. The thing is, so two things are on the three things. Thoughts I feel like I got to get out of there.
Mm-hmm.
First of all, I think you and I even having this conversation, there are probably going to be some people who label us racist. Do you think, just for even talking about this?
I agree with that.
Why is that?
Let's not forget your three thoughts because
Right,
I want to come back
but that's
to it.
one
So
of them. Why is that?
I agree with that because the perception is here's two white guys, they have no business talking about it, okay? I disagree with the premise of that hypothesis or the premise of that conclusion that two white guys shouldn't be able to talk about race. I think that we should. I think if we were two black guys, two brown guys, one white guy, one black guy, I think these conversations are fine with any person of any skin color just because we're too white. Now,
I agree,
now
but
listen,
why will we be labeled that? Or why will we be told we can't have this conversation?
Because we don't understand what they're going through. And part of it is true. Part of that is true. So I think what makes the most sense when two white guys talk about race relations in America, I think we should be careful to frame the discussion in terms of statistics, objective data, objective outlook, those types of things, and less about like personal experience.
Sure.
So it would make no sense to be like, I don't think there's a race issue in
Because
I don't deal with it.
Because
I've never experienced it. So that's
I totally
obviously
get that.
that's
I totally
absurd.
Get that. Yeah.
And I also am sympathetic to the argument or to the discussion point from a black or brown person when they say, when a black guy is shot by cops, no matter what the color of the cops that shot him, let's just say. Because I've heard this multiple times this summer, or I've seen it on social media and so forth. It's like, don't rush to what happened, what was the data, what were the facts. Don't rush to that. Be quicker to sympathize, but what's the word I'm looking for? Lament. Be quicker to lament.
Yeah.
I'm okay with that.
A life was lost, and we never want life to be lost. Yeah, I get that.
Here's what I would say to that, Chris. If I'm black and you're white, and we're going to have a discussion about race relations, or talk about Jacob Blake, and I say to you, Chris, we shouldn't have an objective discussion about this. We shouldn't rush to the facts, those types of things. I pretty much agree with that. I think what you should then say is, I totally agree. I'm totally fine with that. Just let me know when you're ready to talk about the facts and the objective data.
Yeah, I
because
think that's a very fair way to handle it.
How do we know if there's something to lament about Jacob Blake if we don't know the facts? You know what I mean? So,
but I think you can lament the loss of any life. What regardless of what Jacob Blake did or didn't do, my guess is he had a mom, maybe a sister, an aunt, somebody loved that guy. Probably many people loved that guy. And did he make poor choices, bad decisions? Maybe he did. I'm not super familiar with the case. But there are people who are brokenhearted over losing that guy's life.
Yeah.
And so I'm I'm totally fine with the lamenting regardless of the facts. Lamenting over
Depends
loss
what
of
you're
life.
lamenting. Yeah.
Lamenting over loss of life. I do not believe it doesn't have to always translate to this was a racial issue.
I agree.
Yeah.
But in the terms of what I'm saying, a lot of times what I've heard this summer is it is lamenting that it was a loss of life, which, by the way, I don't think Jacob Blake died, even though he was shot in the back 7 times.
You know what?
But,
I think you're right. Yeah.
But still, I think it has been couched in terms of lamenting the fact that he died because he was black. And listen, people die in this country because they are black. I'm confident of it. Okay, so it's like it does happen. Jacob Blake didn't die. I don't know that Jacob Blake was shot 7 times in the back because he was black. I can't speak to that. I can't even speak to whether George Floyd died because he was black. Truthfully, I can't even truly speak to whether the fact that Ahmaud Arbery was killed because he was black, although that one to me is, again, I haven't kept up with it.
Yeah.
But
I think I read this stuff about that specific case, and I think that to me that lends itself to a couple of absolute idiot rednecks.
I agree with that.
It wouldn't matter, the way I understand it. And again, I'm not the guy who's researching all of this, but the way I understand it, they thought he looked like a guy they had on camera.
Yeah.
And I think if that guy on camera, and I don't even know if Ahmaud was that guy. I don't know if that's been proven or not. I have no clue. But I think if that guy on camera had looked like you, and you would run down that street, those two idiots would have gone after that guy.
It's highly possible.
I just think there are a couple of idiot rednecks who go, that's possible. The guy who's ripping us off. Let's go get him. But I don't know that.
Mm-hmm.
I think any loss of life is sad. The second thing that popped into my mind, and I feel like somebody has said this before that I'm kind of ripping off, but I'm okay with it because I think it's a good thing. To me, I think this is a sin issue, not a skin issue. Have you heard that?
I haven't.
It's a little bit cheesy, maybe. I just think if we all had Jesus, you and I have Jesus, right? I'm assuming Andrew has Jesus, right? I believe this about the three of us. If any person, male, female, black, brown, white, whatever, walked in that door with a smile on their face, treating us kindly, not coming in with not coming in trying to harm us, open arms, sit down. Let's talk. We would be hospitable, warm, welcoming, kind, loving, because that's who we want to be. Yep. That's who we're called to be. I just go, man, I don't see a solution for it. I believe racial tensions are high in our country. I don't think the government solves it for us. I don't believe they solve it for us. Every day, I just think the only thing that solves this is Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the second thing that came to my mind. Third thing that came to my mind is tied to that second thing. I just go, my business name is MadeSouth. I love Southern culture, the Americans. There are things that come with that. I've had people call us racist just for having it in our name. Now, it's been several years since that. But I've had people, MadeSouth, you must be a bunch of racists. Man, the only thing, a guy on a different podcast, asked me a couple weeks ago, what are you doing? And nice guy, I love this guy. But what are you doing to be anti-racist? Just living my life? Treating people how I want to be treated? I'm not the marcher. I'm not holding sign. I don't know that those issues are what some people say they are. And I don't know that they aren't.
Mm-hmm.
But I do know that when a guy comes and if he's hanging lights at our event, or if he's serving food, or if he's an award-winning chef, or if he makes delicious whiskey, or if I just treat them how Jesus wants me to treat them.
Right.
I just be kind to them and love them and try to serve them well, regardless of what they look like or believe or any of that, because that's what I feel like I'm called to do.
Yes.
And if somebody has a different encounter with me, then judge me on that encounter.
Sure.
Not the name of my business. It just is a weird place where in culture where I feel like, I don't know, these are weird times to live in.
Yeah, they really are. And I'm sure you're on the front lines of it, like with having events and how many of your makers are black and brown and minority and Asian and those types of things. And I think the sin issue, not a skin issue, I think it's too simplistic. That's my personal opinion on that.
I get it.
I don't think it's that helpful. I think that black people sometimes are at a disadvantage in this country. I don't think it's as prevalent or as often or as unovercomable as some people think. And then I also think it's more prevalent, more common as some people think it is. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's hard to, I think the trick is to, it is interwoven. It is very complicated. And I also think the attention for the large part this summer has been on areas that it's fine to make improvements in. It's fine to improve the police force. That would actually be fantastic.
I agree.
But
I 1,000% agree.
But keep in mind, most of the time, these guys are just doing their job. They're just doing what they're told. And so who's writing the laws? Who's telling them what to do? Well, it's these politicians. And I think when you start to look at the laws that we have in this country and how they're enforced, at that level, that gets a little bit difficult to say there's no racial problem in America. Because I think there's been improvements, but I think we have farther to go.
But let me ask you, if you go to, and I can't remember names of specific communities, but I can think of West Virginia, very rural, impoverished areas of West Virginia, largely white, crime-ridden, drug infestation, problems with police, but no people of color.
Mm-hmm.
But a very similar situation.
Mm-hmm.
How does that translate? How do you interpret that?
Into race, you mean? Is that what you mean?
Well, no, I mean...
How does it translate into...
Yeah, how does it... You're getting the same result. A lot of the same issues or problems.
Yeah.
Challenges.
Yeah.
That we're seeing played out in the media.
Yeah.
But they're happening in an area of the country where people of color largely don't exist. It's a largely white population.
Yeah. No, you're right. No, I get that. I get that.
So that to me, I go, and I don't know this to be true, but it makes me ask the question, is this more of a socioeconomical problem?
And that's an interesting question. And I think the answer is it more of that? I think that has to be considered. It's what Fadi Bousamra said, who is from Lebanon. He's Lebanese. He's a chief investment officer of a national pension fund, which is performing top 1% in the country. Shout out to Fadi.
Shout out to Austin, Texas. We're trying to figure out how you do it, but he's got it figured out. No.
Austin or Nashville's performing better than Austin's pension fund. Anyhow.
Shout out to Austin. No.
Fadi is, but still shout out to Austin. Fadi's brown, I guess. Like he's from the country of Lebanon. And we were talking about this. And his basic premise was he's not denying that we have race issues still in America or that there's still some progress to be made. I mean, let's just all admit, like, slavery was not that long ago. You know what I mean? And the civil rights movement was really not that long ago. Like, there has to be some leftover, right? I mean, it's logically it would seem reasonable that there's some leftover impact from that. Okay. I mean, I think
agree.
That's somewhat hard to deny. Okay. So he's not disagreeing with any of that, but he put the attention where you put it, which is economic opportunities and hope for the future. Like that has a lot to do with it. And when you look at these ghettos, particularly in urban areas, there's too many black people in these ghettos, right? I mean, we should do something about that. Education would be a good place to start. Giving a better hope for economic opportunities would be a great place to start. Just like in these poor communities in rural areas in West Virginia, for example. So yeah, I do think it has a lot to do with socioeconomic impact and opportunities. I really do.
I tend to land on. I agree with everything you just said. I also believe that racism has existed since the fall of man, and it always will. Mm-hmm. It always will. We're not going to solve this side of heaven. So treat people the way you want to be treated.
Yeah.
Treat people the way Jesus wants you to treat people. Period. Yeah. And I think if we did, I know, I get what you're saying. Somebody who's really experiencing those issues, does it help them to hear a white dude say, everybody needs Jesus? But I do believe it's the truth.
Oh, I do totally agree with it, that it's the truth also. And I think we should treat other people the way we'd want to be treated. And then I think it makes sense, that verse about doing justly,
Yeah. Micah 6:7.
Yeah, Micah 6:8, I think. 6:8. And so I think,
that was close.
When I think to just treat other people the way you want to be treated, like I think that's fine to focus on our own actions. And I also think that it's good to use our influence, our leverage, our little bit of influence in this world to do good, whether that's to help out the poor kid or
I don't disagree.
You know what I mean? I don't care what their skin color is, but including, if there's some things we can do.
But let me ask you something.
Relations,
and this might be, I don't mean this to be like an antagonistic question, but where do you draw the line?
Yeah, about what you should help with and what you shouldn't.
Yeah. I'm genuinely thinking about this right now.
Yeah. That's
where do you go march and where do you
question.
not? Do you march for unborn babies?
Yeah.
Are you talking a lot on this podcast about abortion?
Haven't yet. We have a guy lined up.
How many times have you talked about race?
I don't know. We had 3 or 4 specific conversations. But here's why I don't feel bad about that, though.
I'm not saying you should, by the way.
Yeah, because abortion hasn't, what's the word? Piqued my interest, like some of the race relation stuff.
Just stop and think about that for a minute.
But let me just explain. It's not as personal for me. Okay, I do have a friend who had an abortion. I just don't have, to my knowledge, I haven't experienced it firsthand. I haven't come in contact with it firsthand. But I do have, multiple friends who are Black that aren't or don't feel to be as comfortable in the human experience in America as I am as a white guy. So that's a little bit more my thing. I think abortion is absurd and atrocious. I'd love to talk about it on the podcast, but I don't think, for whatever reason, race relations and abortion are often juxtaposed to each other. I don't know why that is. I'm curious about that because it does seem like I don't know, the people that are more into the race stuff, you hear less about abortion. The people that are more into abortion, you hear less about the race stuff. I don't know why that is. It's sort of weird.
It is kind of weird.
It is kind of weird.
It is kind of weird.
And
where does human trafficking fall into all this?
Yeah.
Like, where do you draw the line?
You're right. Yeah.
So I have 4 kids, Kent. How many do you have? You have more than
5.
that.
Yeah.
You have 5. We're trying to make livings.
Exactly.
Employ people. Build brands. Raise children. Grow young men and women into older, wiser men and women. Love our wives.
Yep. So how much do you get involved? How much do you march? That comes back to your question.
This is something I'm thinking a lot about.
It's something I've thought about a lot too. I think that
look at you and me thinking about the same things.
Boom. I mean, listen, it probably sounds like a cop-out, but it's going to be different for different people.
Yeah.
Like some people in this year, in 2020, I'm confident have dedicated maybe their life or the next season to fighting against abortion. I know I have a friend who dedicated a bunch of her time for the foreseeable future to fight against sex trafficking.
Sure.
Fantastic.
Huge deal. Deal.
And then there's people that are, then there's another lady who is dedicating more of her time to fighting race relations. None of us can do it all. You know what I mean?
I get it.
So here's what I think, Chris. I think as you go, I think I make a bad Holy Spirit for you. You know what I mean?
Well,
I think you have a responsibility.
I would agree with you.
I think you have a responsibility to your family.
Yeah.
I think that that your responsibility is not only to carve out a good life for yourself and your family, but to do good and to do justly in this world, whatever that means. And that means different things for different people.
And here's where I'm going with it. Not I didn't intentionally I didn't take offense to the oversimplification.
Mm-hmm.
But it fits with all this.
Mm-hmm.
If I can simplify it or even oversimplify it down to treating people the way Jesus wants me to, period.
Mm-hmm.
It applies for all this. That
Right.
means I'm not going to buy and sell kids on the internet.
Yeah.
It means I'm not going to treat a person of color differently than I would treat my own child.
Yes.
It means I'm not going to kill an unborn baby.
Yep.
It applies to all these things.
Yes.
A guy told me, I don't even remember who it was, but it's been 20 years ago. He used to pray vividly for his kids and his wife, and his prayers were hours long, and maybe not hours long, I'm making that up, but very detailed prayers. And then somebody told him, and he adopted it, and he said, and it's worked for me. I pray that my kids will grow up to love Jesus with all their heart. Because if they do that, then hopefully choosing a spouse becomes more clear for them. Treating people with kindness becomes more clear for them. Choosing a path or a career or what they're going to do becomes more clear for them. All of these things, if they love Jesus with all their heart, other things hopefully will take care of themselves.
Yeah.
When it comes to social justice, I choose the oversimplification way. I'm going to treat people the way I think Jesus wants me to treat them,
Mm-hmm.
period. Regardless of if I'm on whatever it is, any interaction, that's the way I'm going to treat them.
Yeah.
If it's somebody serving me a hamburger, if it's somebody sitting in my office trying to do whatever the situation.
Yep.
Treat them how Jesus wants me to, period.
Yeah. And that's not, by the way, that's not necessarily an oversimplification because that's hard to do. It's actually hard to treat people the way you'd want to be treated. It's hard to treat people the way Jesus would treat them. Let's just be honest.
It's hard for me to treat my kids the way.
I agree.
It's funny. I don't find it that difficult when it comes to people who aren't my kids. I don't find it that difficult. And maybe it's different people in the way, like I'm a people person. I love being around people.
Yeah.
I'm a very social. Somebody walks in and we're going to be friends pretty quickly. Doesn't matter what they look like. Doesn't matter what they're into. I'm going to find a way to connect with that person.
Yeah.
That I don't find.
I agree with that. I'm more thinking of if the bar is Jesus, that's a high bar because now we're getting into motivations and why are we being nice? Is it because it self-serves ourselves and helps our business and helps our brand and all of these things? And then when we disagree with someone, I'm
hardcore about this. If it's a guy stringing up lights in an event, and something goes wrong, I'm really, really aware of. I'm not going to be that guy who loses my cool on this dude.
I agree with you. Yeah, and
I'm going to go be really kind and I appreciate you being here.
Because he probably didn't try it.
Yeah, and what? He probably didn't what?
He probably didn't try it.
What do you mean he didn't try it?
He probably didn't try to screw up hanging up the lights.
Course.
You know what I mean? Like give him the benefit of the doubt.
Have you ever screwed up in your life?
Of course, yeah.
I need God's grace and mercy every single day of my life, a million times a day. Yep. And my kids are the only one I struggle giving that grace and mercy to. I want to chew their heads off every time they mess up.
I struggle giving myself grace and mercy.
Yeah.
That's the hardest for me.
I do that too.
It's hardest for me.
I do that too.
It's not that I don't sometimes go off on the kids, but so QAnon.
Did we QAnon? You gonna fire one up?
No, I don't want to keep you all night. It's 5:00. What a good way to spend a Friday afternoon. Thank you so much, man.
Is it 5?
This was fantastic. It is 5.
QAnon, did you really want to talk about that?
Do you have thoughts on it? You sound like a pretty hardcore Trumper over there. So
of course I do, right?
Right?
Yeah.
Just because you did.
Why? Because I said he. Yeah.
And that's some insight into the media too.
Yeah, I know. I've got to be a racist if I think that the president is not one, right?
I think, well, you do pretty much. I think Candace Owens would be an interesting president. I think,
I think she'd be fantastic.
Who's the senator from Texas? Ted Cruz. I think that could be interesting.
You think so?
I'll be honest with you.
I think he's been in the game too long, man.
I'm open to that.
He's part of the machine.
I don't know about that.
Well, isn't he?
I just don't know. That's
How long has he been in office?
I really don't know. From what I'm hearing from him in the last, I guess several weeks as it relates to Amy
Coney Barrett.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm kind of like what I'm hearing from him. She seems pretty legit too,
dude,
by the way.
I mean, here's the thing. What kind of world do we live in where a woman who has adopted two kids from Haiti, is that right?
I think so, yeah.
I think that's right.
2 of 7. Or she had 7 kids total, and 2 of them were,
is being called a racist.
What
is going on?
I don't know, dude. It's crazy because the biggest argument against her that I've heard so far is the fact that she's a Catholic. So we're saying that a Catholic person can't be a judge in this country? Dude, that's
you said
insane.
It, not me. Yeah.
That's insane. One of my favorite, I think, clips was she's being interviewed, and apparently she did pretty well in the hearings and so forth and had some pretty good thoughts. And she was asked to hold up her notebook.
Yeah. It's being memed everywhere.
There's nothing on that notebook. Can you imagine being that smart? That'd be awesome. Dude, if I was I would burn out in about 90 minutes.
I'm that smart about some things. It depends on the subject.
Oh, okay.
I think there are things that I could talk to you for 90 minutes about, and you would be like,
well, it's
you
not 90
burn
minutes,
out
it's
and
3 days.
Well, I get it, but I think you would not. You reference 90 minutes. I think there are things in your head that you're passionate about that you could talk very knowledgeably about for 90 minutes and not even blink an eye.
I agree with that, but they're not as technical. Yeah. It's not as detailed. Yeah. It's not like reading from a book while you talk to someone without breaking eye contact. Right. I mean, it's what some people are capable of doing is it's what's going on in their brain is so much more than what's going on in mine. I mean,
she seems like a slam dunk to me.
Yeah.
And I mean, I have some friends who, do you know the name Jay Sekulow?
I don't.
I do.
Okay.
It was the American Civil, I forget the name.
Yeah.
Of it.
American Center for, it's ACLJ.
ACLJ,
but,
yeah.
So Jay has offices here, DC, but Jay is President Trump's personal attorney. And I have some good friends who work for Jay, and they're like, she's shoe-in.
Oh,
guaranteed.
Cool. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, and it's pretty much because if the Republicans vote for her and the Democrats vote against her, she's in, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but no, I guess now that we talked about it, do you have some thoughts on QAnon?
Hey, do you think weed should be legal?
I do.
I tend to agree with you.
Yeah.
I've never smoked it, ever. I don't really have a desire to, but I do think it should probably be legal.
I agree.
I mean, alcohol's legal.
I agree. What's that have to do with QAnon?
I don't know. I was just trying to change the subject.
Oh, yeah, we don't have to talk about QAnon. I do agree that weed should be legal.
What do you think about QAnon?
I think that it has some truth to it, and then in large part is overblown. Like, I don't think Michelle Obama is a man. I don't think the earth is flat. I think President Trump actually got COVID, and I don't think that was a cover for him to sneak off to some battleship and try Bill Clinton on something.
But have you seen that story in QAnon?
Yeah.
You have?
Mm-hmm.
So that's not somebody telling you, hey, QAnon said this.
Oh, okay, let me be clear. I don't go to 4chan or whatever and follow the actual Q drops.
Is that how you do it?
Yeah. So it moved from 4chan to something else. So, no, a lot of what I have heard from Q has been from people who are hardcore Qers, and then media or whatever.
Wow.
So,
I think it's interesting. I'm always up for a good conspiracy theory.
Oh, me too.
I like. Yeah. You know, it's Rogan talks about he wishes Bigfoot were true. He wishes that were real. Aliens. He wishes aliens were real. It's fun to believe in that.
Yeah.
it's fun to think that John F. Kennedy Jr. is still alive.
Right.
And he's going to come back when Trump is reelected. They're going to, and it's going to be, and all these things are going on. All's going to be set right with, like, it's fun to think about that. Yep. I don't know. I don't believe all of that.
I think you can get a little carried away with some of it. I think sort of live in a fantasy land a little bit, but yes, I do think weed should be legal in all 50 states. Thank you for asking that. I think it's important.
Maybe you should do a show about weed.
I think. Oh, I would love to. We've already talked about drug laws on here. I mean, we don't have to get into it, but the fact that so many people die every year from alcohol and no one dies from weed would be a good place to start.
I don't know that nobody dies from weed.
No one's overdosed from weed, ever.
In the history of mankind.
Can't overdose from weed.
You can't.
Nope.
It's impossible.
It's impossible.
But could you get impaired enough that you go do something that takes your life, like drunk driving?
I think so.
Yeah.
I think you could get impaired enough to jump off a roof. You could probably get impaired enough to go take a late night, like swim in the ocean. What's it called when you swim in the nude, naked? What's
skinny dipping?
You could take a late night. You could probably get high enough to go like take a midnight skinny dip in the ocean and feel so good because you're high and get eaten by a shark. Like there's all kinds of ways you can die. Like secondarily, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I
but
get
like to actually die from it, no, you can't. So,
listen, I tend to agree with you. I've never smoked it. I don't really have a desire to do that, but that makes sense to me. I don't
understand.
It's a political
issue.
Yeah, I don't understand why it's okay to drink, but it's not okay to do that.
It's a very good question. And it leads back to some of the political motivations behind some of the laws in this country and who it affects.
Why is it okay to smoke cigarettes, but it's not okay to do that?
Exactly. Tons of people die from tobacco. What else you want to talk about, Chris?
The last time I smoked a cigarette, I'll tell you this, it made me really high. It made me feel high.
Really?
Yeah. Huge buzz. Huge.
Tobacco will light you up.
Dude.
If it's on an empty stomach or something, or you don't smoke a lot, it'll light you up.
And I don't. I never had. There was a period in my life where if I were having some drinks with some buddies, I would want to smoke. I just had this desire to smoke a cigarette. And so if one of them was also a smoker, I would have one. And every single time it was like, holy cow.
Really?
I'm on a different planet right now.
Yeah. I have a pack of cigarettes at home in my bottom desk drawer.
Now I can't do it. I haven't in many, many years. It jacks with my sinuses. I can't do it.
I never smoke it. But occasionally, I've done it probably 2 times this entire, 2 year. Sometimes you just, I'll be honest with you, I like to smoke stuff. So I like cigars, that type. And so I was out of cigars.
And that type of.
Yeah, I bought a pack of cigarettes, but I don't inhale it. I'm a good boy. But for me, I don't need to. It's like, I'm with you. If like some guys are smoking, I'm going to want to smoke something. I don't need it. I just don't want to taste the smoke. That's all. I'm good.
Yeah, I can't, every now and then I go to a friend's house and everybody's smoking cigars. And it jacks me up the next day. Just being around it. And I don't smoke cigars.
It messes up your sinuses.
Oh, yeah.
Well, Andrew, it messes up your sinuses too, doesn't it?
Man, for the next day, I'm like, I just feel miserable. I can't breathe. I'm all.
Was great.
Man.
That Filson episode was great.
David Filson, the guy I said you need to listen to.
Yeah.
He and I smoked a cigar. We didn't know Andrew couldn't handle it very well, and I was blowing in that direction most of the time.
Man.
The poor guy was wearing his mask by the end of the episode.
You need a fan or something.
We do. Yeah, we're talking about that.
Built in.
We good?
What are you doing these days? Is this your full-time gig now?
Yeah, pretty much. So just a few weeks ago, we decided we're going to double down on the podcast and build some things around it. So, we record every day. So Andrew's full-time.
Yeah. That's great.
And he runs this, and then he does the editing and the publishing on YouTube and Libsyn and everything with the podcast. Yeah. And with half the day, being pretty much taken up during the recording, and then, the other half of the day, he's getting it out and everything. I'm scheduling guests and doing this, and then also kind of working on some of the other things that we plan to kind of build around the podcast.
I love it.
So that's what I'm doing. Yeah, it's full time now.
Good for you.
So I don't know if it's going to work, man. We'll see. But this comes back to doing things with wisdom. The way that Andrew and I are both looking at this is it's like don't start building what's the Bible say? Basically, don't start building a house, unless you have enough to finish it or whatnot. So like we wouldn't do this if it's like we need money to come in 3 weeks from now, and if no money comes in 3 weeks from now, oops, we have to quit. Like that's obviously not the plan. So we're good for a season here, but we're not going to do this for 3 years if it doesn't gain traction and it's proven that's like maybe this isn't gonna go anywhere. Well, then we'll pivot too.
Trying to get you a Rogan style Spotify deal.
No, I don't know. I guess that'd be great. I mean, shoot, if I don't think that's definitely not the business plan here, because I think you have to have quite a listenership is my understanding. Mm-hmm. But it'd be great if we could have some money coming in from advertisers or sponsorships, partnerships, other like investments around it.
Do you have a dream sponsor? Do you ever think about that and you go, oh, if I could talk about this brand every day?
Okay, so I haven't thought of it in those terms.
How have you thought about it?
I mean, I would talk about Tesla. I don't know if they'd pay anything. I'd talk about Buffalo Trace. I would talk about, what was the other one I sent you, Andrew?
Guidance Whiskey.
Guidance Whiskey, but CBDMD. I would talk about anyone that sells meat over the internet. I'm on the carnivore diet. Why do you ask?
I don't know. I'm just curious.
Yeah.
I like turning conversations around.
I would want Froning Farms as a sponsor.
Rich Froning?
Rich Froning Farms. They sell bison.
Shout out to Rich Froning, Franklin, Tennessee.
Absolutely. What are you doing tonight?
Man, if I told you, you wouldn't believe me.
You got to get out of here.
I've got to go to a line dance. A homeschool line dance.
Oh, that sounds fun, honestly.
Does it really?
I've line danced a couple of times. Yeah.
Yeah. It doesn't sound fun to me. My kids are going to have fun. Yeah, we'll have fun. It'll be great. But line dancing is not my thing.
Yeah.
Thank
you for coming by, man.
Thanks
I appreciate
for
it.
Me. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing where your head's at with business and how you're navigating this year and everything. It's interesting to me and helpful, and I think it's going to be for other people as well.
Shout out to other people.
Christopher Thomas.
I like doing that.
Thanks, man.
I love you, Ken.
Love you too.